the last week I went from playing well, I guess I was playing a narrative game like Coffee Talk, which I guess is kind of on my like it's normal, but now I'm like relentlessly playing Forza Horizon, and I'm like, what?
Oh, how did I get here?
Yeah, this isn't normal. But are you
Yeah.
guys just playing unusual games, or you're just having a hard time finding
I
like a
downloaded
game?
back Oblivion because I was looking at my list of games that I have and that I have never played or whatever, and none of it is appealing to me at all, which is unusual because
Telling
I'll
you.
usually prefer to play something new than something I've played like countless hours before.
Same.
And I went to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done with Oblivion. Like I'm done wasting my time, whatever. And like the next day, I was back on it because nothing else is appealing to me.
Yep. Okay. So that's pretty much exactly. It's like I'm like I should play Forza. I should play a story game, and I'm like, but then my there's like part of my brain that's like you should play Forza. I'm like I should play Forza. I'm not even a car person. I'm just like,
I mean,
all right, I'm gonna play.
I like my car games as much as the next guy.
See, that's the thing is I don't usually
yeah,
go
right.
for that. Like I obviously I was interested. I find cars interesting enough to have picked up Forza Horizon 3 and 4 at some
Yeah,
points.
that's what I'm thinking.
But I never really had the urge to like, oh, I should play. Like my brain is just like, you should play Forza, and like maybe it's because it could have to do with the fact of lockdown and like I'm in my house a lot and like it feels freeing to be driving around and like exploring.
That's why
in a
I'm
car.
playing Rocket League. I need my car back.
It could be. Could be driving feels liberating. Something like that. But I will admit one thing, which is that
You're gay.
the designer what was that?
Said you're gay.
Jacob.
Jacob,
Sorry.
come on, we're not at Jack Astor's, bro. Gotta treat him like a person here.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'm
saying
not
that his reveal is that he's gay. Why are you guys making it weird?
Jacob, my God.
It's the amount of careful design that went into a game. Like for anyone who doesn't even give the slightest shit about racing, they do such a good job at making it really accessible and interesting for people who like. It's like you could basically play the game almost like Mario Kart if you want to, or you can change it to become like a car sim, depending on how you set the specs. I just out of curiosity, like I have a billion cars because I have the Ultimate Edition, so it just threw a million cars at me, and you can literally like the customization options are disgusting. It's like I don't even know what anything is because I don't know like the anatomy of a car. So it's like, oh yeah, you could change the hydraulics and you could change the air intake and the turbines and the torque, increase the torque with it. There's like a million stats, and I'm like, I just want speed to go up, I want handling to go up, and I don't care about anything else.
Big numbers, please. That's what I get from racing games that have stats like.
Yeah.
Cars are really pretty though.
They are really pretty.
Like,
Very nice to look at. I've just been looking at my car for 2 weeks, just sitting in the parking lot because the battery won't fucking start.
oh jeez,
It's okay.
Tender.
I got nowhere to go. Fucking the hell do I care? If I had a job, that'd be nice, but no.
Oh man,
Rest is still
we're
dead.
in this together.
I know.
We're in it. The unemployed. Well, I mean, Jacob. I don't know what's going on with you because I know Louis works, but are you got anything going on, or you're still?
I'm still waiting.
All right, so then there's three of us.
My job's
yeah.
I've been told recently my job's there just as soon as things can be a thing again.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's basically what the keg's saying.
So I'm just kind of waiting that out.
All right, well that's fair. I mean, it's not like you.
I'm not gonna find as good of a financial situation if I go somewhere else. I don't think. So I'm willing to wait.
Yeah, that's.
Unless I go to another restaurant, which is same problem.
It's a fair concern.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna go back to retail. I'd rather die.
Yeah, right.
It's funny. It's like I didn't even have such a rough time in retail, but like I don't think I could do it. I think it's also
not
a pride
about
thing. It's
getting
like
a rough time. It's a pride thing.
it's such a like. I'm like no. I'm like I'd rather be homeless. Like it's obviously not. I would. It's not about being homeless.
I would draw the line at some point, but it's just so soul sucking. I hate it.
Well, it's like after you've put in a certain amount of commitment towards something else, it feels kind of like a betrayal to yourself to to switch out back to something else. It's like
Yeah.
Jacob, if you put all that time into Jack Astor's to be like promoted and everything, and then you're like, oh, let's start from scratch at like Burger King. It's like it's hard to make that.
Like, no. If I'm moving, I
Like-
better get at least some sort of improvement to my situation.
That's usually the point.
I mean, I think the main deal is you get a job until you can afford to get a career. That's really what it comes down to, right?
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although right now I have neither, but you know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. Both are a work in
I hear
progress.
that. Yeah.
Thank God for unemployment checks.
I mean, basically, huh?
yeah.
Jeez.
Gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah. That's silly. Anyways, let's talk about less silly things like the collapse
Video
of
games.
society,
Video games.
and let's talk about video games instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's come on, guys. We're adults here. Let's
Yeah.
discuss games.
Yeah.
What's
Put our
an
blinders
adult?
on and just focus on the things that make us happy, okay?
Exactly. Republicans. Hoorah.
So before we jump into anything, do we want to get the logistical part of our day done with first?
Sure.
We wanna
Let's have our
discuss-
meeting first.
Yeah, discuss
Basically.
our plans and our ideas.
Okay. So you brought up potentially playing something on Wednesday for a sort of Let's Play thing. Anything jump to mind? Because I've been scratching my ass and like I don't know, man.
That's my biggest issue with that
So,
idea. I like
yes.
the idea. I just have no clue what to.
Yes, and also alternative idea that may be easier to do. So first, because it's hard to find a four-player multiplayer game that we all have and want to play, because we all have our I'm not interested in Valheim. You're not interested in Rocket League. Julian's generally not interested. Period, which is totally fine. But I was thinking one thing we could do is maybe set up a Minecraft server for the four of us.
That's nice and simple.
That's
Yeah.
something that Julian is willing to do.
Louis, are you willing to play cooperative regular boy Minecraft? Because I know you're a Sky Factory addict.
Yeah, I can manage.
Yeah.
I think it could be interesting to play something a little harder than classic old boring Minecraft. But
Well,
I
maybe
can,
we
I can
start
play
with
fair.
basic bitch.
I can
and
play
then
fair.
if we end up doing it a lot and like kind of get to a point where like, okay, well, we've done this round of survival. Let's up the stakes a bit. Or we can even just play around with some of the modifiers. Put on like crazy biomes and shit. But yeah, we can do, I mean, I'm down to try weird stuff or harder stuff too. But the other idea that I birthed yesterday, it kind of solves the multiplayer issue, and is more still like a let's play thing where basically one of us will play a game and for now stream it with everyone else kind of there, and we're kind of like collectively playing the game. Like a basic example could be like one of the Telltale games where like one of us plays but we kind of collectively make the terrible decisions to kill everybody.
I like that.
And
It's kind of like Twitch plays the game, but we're Twitch.
Or
Yeah,
like only plays,
exactly.
where it's
and
like
to take it even a step further, I was thinking
Just your average playthrough.
Yeah, just
Basically.
your average playthrough, but we can also we can rotate who's the player, and when
Yeah,
you're
for
playing,
sure.
you can play like your specialty or the things that you play that maybe the rest of us aren't going to play. Like for example, Julian can bust out the horror games he loves that I'm never going to play, but I'll happily watch and comment on as he's playing, and then I can bust out some of the CRPGs, some of the more obscure ones. Like there's Planescape, there's Torment, Tides of Numenaria, there's Tyranny. Louis, I don't know, you could bust out like Mega Man or something. Or
Sure,
Dan,
man.
you can take us down the rabbit hole of Kenshi or whatever else tickles your
oh man. Okay.
So yeah, we can each have like a niche that we are the player for, and then everyone else kind of backseats games and watches on.
Yeah, I can dig it.
Yeah.
And we can like alternate, every with this day it's I play, Pillars of Eternity, and then next day Julian, or the next time Julian plays Resident Evil 7 or 8 depending on the timeline.
Yeah.
And then next time Dan you play Kenshi or whatever. and then we can but we should, each at least for the start pick a game that we'll go through like in this format. Like I'll pick one of the CRPGs. Julian, you pick your go-to horror game. It doesn't have to be Mega Man. Louis, you can play whatever you want. But,
No, yeah, for sure.
But something, and Dan, you too. And then we'll have that way. We'll still have our podcast, and then if we want to still, we can, if we do the Minecraft thing, we'll have that, and then maybe on the same day as the Minecraft, like we'll do like 2 hours of that, and then an hour or two. As long as we're all still like unemployed for now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we can do another hour or two of one of us playing our games, but it's separate videos, separate streams, even.
Yeah, like you take Wednesday as like the film day, and then you go like each of us kind of has a thing. So it's still the same 4-hour block that we would normally be doing, generally, but we're just like recording. I mean, yeah, I'm done. I think that's a nice sustainable way to do things.
Yeah, I like it actually.
Gives us more than one like huge video a week. It's kind of like more bite-sized, manageable. Yeah.
I like it.
Well done, Jacob. You get brownie points.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I like it. It gives us a way to kind of like not only talk about video games and how they've influenced us and whatever, but actually try to showcase some of them. Like maybe dig up some older games and some just weird games.
Yeah,
and
those obscure games that maybe you played or you were interested in, and you just want to share with us and by extension whoever.
Share with the class what you've been doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Show us this game that you love, but maybe not everybody.
But
plays.
that nobody else has heard of, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or that everyone's heard of, but that you're like, hold my beer, I'm gonna show you how this game actually plays.
Right.
I was also thinking we could do certain games like have kind of simultaneous playthroughs where we're just like each starting a game, and then in the time we have try to get like either as far as possible or get the jankiest build as possible or whatever. Just have fun with the game.
Challenge run, basically.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, we could
basically.
do that randomizer Mass Effect playthrough, but do the whole game.
Oh Jesus Christ! I think that's the kind of shit where we'd have to like have like the one save file that we can all like jump on and just like, okay, today Dan's the one who's playing the save file, and like we get forward with that if it's manageable. I don't know how easy it would be to do,
would work,
but like if we can try to find a way for, especially for those longer winded games where it's just like you don't want to have always the same guy playing.
Yeah, but I'll also be easier to deal with when the world is normal again, and we could like gather
if we
somewhere,
can gather.
Get in person,
and
yeah.
have us all on camera. Because like, I know for me, when I'm the one streaming and playing, I'll have at least my face up. But there's no.
Yeah,
real
I mean,
way
I
to get
have
all of
a
us in here, at least
webcam,
not
but
on
I
the
think it
stream.
would be crowding your stream to have everybody with a webcam.
No, but what we could do, because one thing that's cool about this idea as well is it lends itself well to shorter videos, like just like highlight videos.
Sure.
And then if you're editing that, whoever's editing that, can get like other people. I don't know how easy it is, but I'm sure we can send it to each other people's cam footage, and then edit them on, at least for the highlight video.
Mm-hmm.
And you can like adjust the size and stuff, so it's a little easier to handle.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Oh, here's an idea for. I mean, it's just an idea for potential gameplay. Has anyone here played The Forest?
I have.
I've played a bit.
Yeah.
I don't think
Pretty
I mean,
extensively,
it's
actually.
It's been pretty updated. It is something we could potentially do. Jacob, it's not quite like Minecraft. It is a survival-based game.
Or survival.
But there's some horror in it too, because like the monsters are genuinely disturbing.
Yeah. Is it free?
No.
How much is
It's like
it?
I think it's like $20 right now. Let me check. Okay, internet's being slow. 2 seconds.
It's all good. Another
Yep, $22. There you go.
All right. Well, something to consider for sure.
Yeah.
For Minecraft, though, do either of you know how to set up a server?
No,
Zach does.
Zach does. He'll have to show one of us.
Zach
Whoever's got the
does,
best
and I can
bandwidth,
probably
basically.
learn it. I can probably learn it pretty easily.
Because
There you
we will
go.
need someone.
Like, I managed to get an Arc server running. I don't imagine that it's very different. from doing that.
Well, we can talk to Zach tomorrow, before or during or after.
I think he's
D&D.
free later today, to be honest. I'll
Well,
talk to him today.
Yeah,
if you're busy.
Yeah, after we're done, I'll be with Sydney till probably like 9-10 o'clock. So.
Oh,
Zach
then you're
may be
breaking
gone.
up? Jacob, what?
Yeah. Oh no.
Just till 9, 10 o'clock, and then that's it. No more!
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Cool.
Was there anything else? So yeah, everyone just at least start thinking about what game you'd want to
Yeah, bring to the table.
bring to show and tell,
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
and we can start. I mean, I can definitely be ready. Or if someone else wants to, we could do a first episode of one of us doing that on Wednesday as well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to spend too much time playing Minecraft. We can do Minecraft for a bit and that, or whatever. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, we should
but-
maybe try to think of a plan. If we're going to be playing Minecraft, maybe try to think of something we can do in Minecraft.
Yeah, set a goal.
Well, I guess, are we doing survival, or do we just want to build, or do we want to do like, I don't know. I don't know what the goals are. So
Yeah, no, that's where it's just like the goal is whatever you set yourself to. If you have an idea for a build, we can do that. If you have
Basically.
just an idea of some fun we can have, just I guess the best option is just watch a bunch of videos and see what kind of stupid fun people are having in Minecraft and see if something strikes your fancy, I guess.
yeah, so we can brainstorm that, and then when we set it up on Wednesday, we can decide.
Yeah.
And also, think of the game you want to play, and I guess when you have it, you can just like message it in the chat or whatever, and we can figure out who goes first.
Yes.
But I think that's it for all that shenanigans. So today we're going to talk about remakes and remasters, and if we have time, Julian sent me some great questions for another little Q&A bit.
Oh,
Nice.
I'm excited to hear
Nice.
them. So yeah, we can start by, like last time, we'll talk about remakes, remasters until we don't want to anymore. And assuming we still have time after that, which I think we will. I don't think it'll be too long of a topic. Then we can go through those questions as well as a few other leftovers I had from last week as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
So with that, welcome to the 11th episode of Just Your Average Gaming Podcast, where we're going to, like I said, talk about remakes, remasters, while I stream a game I would love to see remade, Morrowind. Remakes and remasters. What do y'all think of them? We'll just keep it broad for starts. Do you think overall it's a good thing for the industry to have this emphasis on remakes and remasters? Because we have seen a lot, especially in the last generation, and going forward it seems to just be growing. So do you think this is a good trend?
First by carriage, and now by boat.
Yeah, shoot away.
To the east, to Morrowind.
Stand
Anyone
up.
wants to take the opening
There you
comment?
go.
I think you just
You're
did.
dreaming.
I think I just did.
What's your name?
I've grown to dislike the remake industry because I find that everything it does is either predatory behavior on the nostalgia of those who were heavily driven by it, or just underwhelming work in general. Even for remakes that are actually decent remakes, it's sometimes work that just it fails to recapture often what was good about the original game. And sometimes the remakes, like I was talking with Dan yesterday about the Secret of Mana remakes that have been published a couple months back, and I looked at a lot of the 3D footage of what was originally a SNES 2D game, and I think the 3D actually hurt the game, and I think that in a lot of cases remakes actually hurt the original game There's a few notable exceptions, of course, but I don't like this trend of heavy remakes, personally.
I'm not so far on either side of the fence because I've seen both the good and the bad it can cause. I will admit that Louis got a point that it can seem a little scummy sometimes. And yes, I'm looking at you, Last of Us 1 remake. Like, really? Do you has it really been that long? Really? But I, on one hand, I enjoy what they can bring back because, like, say what you will about nostalgia. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it poisonous? Does it make you relive the past times and forget about moving on in the future? Maybe. Who knows? But there is something to be said about being able to play the classics on a modern system. I praise Nintendo and the Switch, and even like to a bit of a lesser extent, but nonetheless, the 3DS, which brought us, the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remakes. I have some of these games that I now have on the Switch as well, in physical, like N64, whatever copies. But they're old machines. They break sometimes, or like other times, some games like Earthbound or Chrono Trigger are far easier found in the remastered version than in the old version. So I do like the accessibility that it brings. I just feel like there's a certain line that sometimes they can cross. And having heard some recent news about the potential Knights of the Old Republic remake or remaster, whatever the hell you want to call it, ditching the old school RPG elements for more action-oriented elements, I don't know. I'm worried. I am heavily in the middle of the fence for this one.
So the next few titles could make it or break it, kind of deal.
I mean, basically, yeah, and they have to really make it, and not just make it for themselves, but like make enough of an impact on the industry that other people who are doing the remakes and remasters have to start putting in as much love, or else they'll just tank in sales. I want to see bad ports and remakes tanking, but like, how can you tell until it's already out and people have bought it and pre-ordered and whatnot? And I think we had a discussion on the nasty nature of pre-orders and shit.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'd like to say cautiously optimistic. I mean, once again, I'm looking at big boy Nintendo. Like, there's going to be more Zelda remakes this year. There have to be. It's the 35th anniversary. We're getting Skyward Sword, which already looks great. And now that the Mario 35th anniversary is over, we're definitely going to see some more remakes coming. And if they do it well, I will be very impressed and very happy with them. Cautiously optimistic.
It's a reasonable position.
So I think that really So it really depends because remakes and remasters are not really the same thing, and there's so many different versions of this. There's like so many that are essentially just ports. If they're just reselling a game as a port, like Skyward Sword isn't really a remaster. It is more of a port than anything with the updated control scheme. Like even though yes, it does give there's games that give more accessibility to new players by having the option to play on a newer console. I think that the problem I have is that charging full price for a game that wasn't just developed but ported feels, I don't know, it doesn't feel authentic, and it feels like how many times are we going to have to rebuy the same game if it's just for ports all the time. I don't love that, but I also don't know the alternative if people want to play games on newer hardware that isn't a PC. But remakes, however, I think are a different story. So if we're looking at like the new Knights of the Old Republic, if you look at Resident Evil 1, the Resident Evil 1 on GameCube, obviously major improvements were made, and those are, I find, a lot more acceptable. Like Demon Souls remake, Final Fantasy VII. It's like, yeah, they change fundamental aspects about the game, or even Resident Evil 2 and 3, for that matter. Fundamental things are different. So it's almost like a parallel game rather than just updated graphics, which I feel like doesn't feel very interesting. As someone who collects games, it's like, I already bought it, now I just have to buy it again to make it run on a higher resolution. That isn't quite enough to keep me interested. It's usually when something more interesting happens, like even the Persona games, they get updated and they add more content, which isn't my favorite thing in the world either, but at least it justifies, like, okay, there's a reason to get the new game. It's not just It's not just slightly improved graphics, which is I find the least interesting reason. Like it runs now on PS3 instead of PS2, or runs on PS4 instead of PS3. Like, it, it's less interesting. But I think if I had to put my mind at work to figure out why this is a thing, it's clearly just it's a way to get quick funding. So if there's a drought, for example, let's say there's no big games coming out, it seems like a pretty quick and easy way to appeal to the public and fill in a gap and make some quick money on an update. So like imagine, for example, if they just re-released, I don't know. I'm actually trying to find a game that hasn't been re-released.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay, Horizon Zero Dawn. Let's say Horizon Zero Dawn's the sequel's coming out for PS5 this year. Let's say before that comes out, they release the PS5 port, which runs at a slightly higher frame rate, better resolution. It's like, yeah, they could use it to build hype for the sequel, and people who don't have a PS4, well, even if you don't have a PS4, you can still buy Horizon and run it on your PS5. But let's say people want to take advantage of the situation, get an updated version. They could do the same thing for the God of War sequel. They could be like, well, I never played the other one, so I'll just buy the remake if they make it. So it's like it's quick and easy. But as opposed to Nintendo, I think Sony tends to not charge full price for a port. Although Shadow of the Colossus was a full remake, so that doesn't count. But most of the time, they don't charge $80-$90 for a port, essentially.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a.
At the same time,
let's unpack.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Sony's kind of like responsible in some ways for the proliferation of port-like remakes, because they don't allow, like, the reason why The Last of Us got a remake on PS4 was because there was no other way to play it on a PS4, because there was no backwards compatibility.
Yeah, PS4 lost the backward compatibility from the get-go.
Gives a bigger avenue for remakes, or remasters to kind of take over or fill that gap. Whereas if they just let it happen, and maybe less popular.
I mean, you're right. I agree, and I do think that Sony not having backwards compatibility for their older consoles feels kind of unfair, and I hope they manage to add it somehow later. But keep in mind, I'm not saying this is a good excuse, but at least they have PlayStation Now as a means to play PlayStation 3 games. It's definitely not a great solution because it's still streaming games, which there's latency and other sorts of issues with it. But at least there's something there. It's not like it's completely impossible to play PS3 games on a PS4. It's just not ideal, but it exists at least.
Yeah. All right. As for me, I guess I'm more in the middle as well. I think overall, I like the idea, especially of full remakes that are maybe really taking the product to somewhere it couldn't have been before. So I'm not a huge fan of just okay, here's the game again, you can run it in 4K now, and we'll charge you $20 for it. That's that's more, like you're saying, that's more
a patch at best.
Yeah, but sometimes it gets advertised that way. I mean, what much more difference is there than just the resolution and some textures between The Last of Us on PS3 and PS4? But I think at the same time, well, obviously it's prone to some shady or half-assed remakes. Certain remasters and the ideas of certain games being remastered is very exciting, because games are unique in the sense that like a movie can be enjoyed fundamentally the same way regardless of whether it was made today or 80 years ago. Sure, it might be black and white, but you still get what you're there for through the acting and the dialogue and the story of the movie. So that in the sense, basically what I'm saying is movies and TV, while can certainly benefit from modern technology, I don't think they were inherently handicapped by the older technology. Whereas games, there's a huge gap. You just look at what I'm playing right now and what Louis playing right now and Skyrim, and you're like, okay, there's a fundamental difference in how you experience Morrowind compared to how you experience Skyrim. You can argue whether it's for better or worse, but and what we lose along the way, which I think is the bigger issue. But if I could experience what Morrowind is, but with the ease and beauty of Skyrim, then I would be all over that in a second. I think remakes are great, in bringing outdated or they're just otherwise just very old games back into the mainstream and make it playable. And even something like Nier, whereas the original came out only like 10 years ago, I can tell you the combat is vastly different, and I couldn't get through the first Nier when I played it the first time, but now I'm able to through this remake, even though it's a little different than the original one because it's a weird series. But yeah, I think overall, especially in games, it's a great thing to help give new life to things that not only are difficult to play now, but in some cases almost impossible if you're depending how far back you're going and how old we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And even just old consoles, they can break. They can, new TVs are not built to run them. My TV doesn't have the red, white, and yellow fucking cable plugs. That doesn't exist anymore. That's why, Julian, you have your old TV with your old school console set up. Short of that, you can't really play those games easily. But if they get remastered on the Switch, then it's a little easier.
My TV actually does have the red, white, and yellow cables, though. My big flat screen too. So It's just more because I mean, there's only so many inputs I could put on one TV. I only have so much physical space. But yeah, they also run better on a CRT though.
Yeah.
CRT TVs don't have as much input lag as HD TVs. It was one of their only strengths when HD came out, and it's still to this day very true that there's just less input lag. You get better direct input from the time you press your button to the time your little character reacts.
Yeah. But, remastering a game with modern hardware, eases that ability to play. And I think for certain games, it's a very exciting prospect. Like the idea of Morrowind getting even a Skyrim level remaster, even though that's dated almost these days. But a modern day Morrowind would be something I would get right away. I mean, I bought the remake of Nier day one, and I never even really, didn't really play much of the game originally. And I feel like that as well is a great way to bring more people into a series like Nier that isn't as, mainstream or as well known as some other, big budget action RPGs are. And I think Nier's going to benefit a lot from having this remake of the original come out, and help, especially the people who got into it like me through Automata, and now you have a chance to play the first game again in a way that feels familiar. I think it's great. But of course, it's a lot of risk of just ruining the experience and creating something completely, a complete misrepresentation of what's being remade. But I think it's worth the risk for the good ones that get through. So is that it? That's it. That's the discussion.
I mean, deafening silence like that only means that we're done. So
no, I was thinking about a lot of things. Well, let's start from the beginning, shall we? When it comes to playing the old consoles on modern televisions, there exists some cheap, affordable solution to kind of capture these older inputs and then have them displayed through HDMI in a way that makes sense for an HDMI television that doesn't completely distort the image or anything. I don't remember how they're called. I can probably link them in the comments once this video is up. But the options are there. Though it is true that both, if you look at older hardware like Super Nintendo or Game Boy cartridges that require internal batteries to hold saves and whatnot, just getting them ported to a more recent system that's not so prone to these kinds of failures is already a big start, especially when it comes to these older games where some generations of gamers, it's easy for someone of my age to take for granted the idea that someone's played Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI, even though those games are almost 25 years old, and not all gamers are going to have played on those old systems. Now, does that mean that these games need to be reworked from the ground up to fit into modern sensitivities? I don't think so, or at least not in every case. Though it is true that a lot of those games, and Nier Replicant seems to be one of them, I've looked at footage and it looks absolutely amazing. Some games do benefit from that treatment, which is why I'm also kind of on the fence. I'm hopeful, like Dan is, I'm hopeful that good things can happen, but my experience of what's happened so far doesn't take me there. Like, I find that a lot of times, a lot of the best remakes I've played were often just included in big collection that got rid of some of the minor issues or some of the minor quirks. For example, Mega Man on the SNES was notoriously laggy with some sprite flickering issues. Well, issues. It was the way the hardware would deal with the lag. But, like, there used to be these issues inherent with the systems they were using that we can work around in modern systems. Although some of them still make the choice of preserving them just because they were part of that, like, antique signature. The same way you wouldn't remaster a black and white movie to add color, or at least I don't think you should. Sometimes getting rid of those, it's not a bug, it's a feature kind of moment isn't actually helping.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you that especially like you're saying, like you're playing Morrowind, and I would love to play Morrowind again, but with like 2020 level graphics. Like, get me that game in 4K, and like with the level of detail that we can achieve now, like I'd be all over something like this for sure. Now, I have a little pop quiz for you guys. Just one simple question. One simple question.
Yeah, exactly.
I was not prepared.
What is the earliest remake you can think of?
Okay, when we talk again, I need to clarify. Are we talking
Not a
remake,
port,
like-
not just a port. Like, there has to have been some work to like adapt to a system. Like, it's not just like we took all the Mega Man games and published Mega Man X Collection. Like, no, remake.
Mario All Stars on the Super Nintendo?
That a boy, yes sir.
Hey, nice.
I was hoping someone would figure it out because that's the oldest case I can think of. They had to rebuild the entire sprite base, the entire tile base, to recreate what was essentially lost levels. They did the same treatment to Super Mario Brothers, but the intention was to bring Super Mario Lost Levels to America because it was too difficult, said the Chinese or the Japanese.
It is
But,
pretty hard.
It is very hard. If you've played regular Mario and you try to play this, you're probably gonna get your shit pushed in. But the remake was rebuilt from the ground up, and none of the marketing material about that game tried to hype the fact that it was remade from the ground up. If anything, the fact that they were just being brought to the SNES, that's the only thing that was ever mentioned about any of the work that had to be done for that to happen. But over the years, we're seeing more and more games be like, oh yeah, rework, re-release, like all of those fancy words that they're putting for something that feels a lot of time like it was just ran through like a re-graphics engine. Like they're just modifying how the shading works because they have access to better shading engines or better lighting, like through engine quirks, rather than through actually taking the textures and the models and putting actual work into them. I guess it's that it's difficult to put a price on something like nostalgia, because of course the studios that develop these games have to make their costs, but at the same time it's like, how much of that work was original work to say that you actually had to R&D stuff and develop either new tech or whatever. Like, it's old stuff. The work is like pre-chewed. So in the case of full price remaster, it's often unjustified to pay the full price.
Yeah,
Like Final Fantasy VII is really the outlier in how it handled its whole rework. Like it's a new game. Like forget rework. Like it's a new game.
Yeah.
Same with Resident Evils 2 and 3. It's like it's the same idea, but like made as a modern game. Like they use the original as like the inspiration, rather than even games like Demon Souls. Even though Demon Souls is ground up remade with animations and models. It's weird because it's like half the team is working really hard, but I have to wonder like what was the design team doing? If it's a remaster, I'm like, did they even have level designers working on it? Because the levels were already designed. So I'm wondering like what's happening there. Or in the game design team, it's the same game design for I'd say like 95% of it is pretty much the exact same game design.
Yeah, I think they added like one little sub area that's actually super tough to get in.
Right. But aside from that, like, that's it. So that's why I'm wondering, like, what you normally you would have a full team. Like the design team is a big chunk of your development team, but without them being quite as necessary, it's like the cost would go down. Or do they just siphon the cost of the designers and place it more on artists? That's what I'm wondering if places like Bluepoint, companies that do like basically just remasters, I wonder if it's just like a massive team of artists with like 3 designers kind of just overlooking and being like, oh, maybe we could tweak this a little. Because, yeah, it's not as necessary, it's not as front and center when you're doing a remake. But then Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil, yeah, that's basically like they just made a new game and called it the same as the other one. Like that's essentially it's so different that it merits being its own game. Like you could consider them 2 different games at that point.
Yeah, I guess there's enough of a distinction between remasters and remakes, in the sense of how they retell the story. See, I don't know. I can't necessarily agree whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. When you go back and update, like look at George Lucas and the way that he handles his movies. You know, with all the recuts and remasters and this and that. He got a lot of flack for it. You know, I feel like games with their flaws and all kind of. Just like if there is going to be a remaster, I almost prefer ports than remakes in any degree.
Really?
I'm with you on that one, yeah.
I feel like there's something to be said about preserving the past, and when you get like something like Final Fantasy the remake, like I haven't played it yet, but that's not because I'm like, oh, I don't want to play the game. I disagree with it. It's more because I want the full thing to be out before I start spending money. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, all that to be said, like. For example, if they had gone back and changed Majora's Mask like in a distinct way for like a remake, then I'd be upset because that's not the game that I used to play back in the day.
Didn't they change it a little?
They certainly tweaked some things. It was more like quality of life things than anything else. Like they made your bomber's notebook like update automatically, and like you can kind of adjust instead of just jumping ahead by, I think it was like 12-hour increments.
12 hours,
you could go like by the hour, which was like, I mean, like all that they were cutting out there was like waiting around, you know. So like stuff like that, I totally understand. But once again, to go back to the KOTOR thing, if they're taking out the RPG elements, that's not Knights of the Old Republic anymore. It might be the same story, retold through a different lens, but like, you know, not my KOTOR.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit on this one.
Good.
Because yeah, I think it's really this is very subjective, so obviously it's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, Knights of the Republic it's in the same kind of precarious position as Final Fantasy VII Remake in the sense that it's like they're changing how the combat system works to be different. But it's not like Knights of the Old Republic is somehow incredibly inaccessible or something. Like it's still there. Like Knights of the Republic will always still be there on like Steam. It's like it's always there. If you hate this new one, then like you can ignore it entirely. Like it's more of just like it's trying to bring it to the masses again. It's like rather than having to come up with an original idea, they're like, well, this worked once, we can do it again, except make it like it might fail miserably. They could maybe they'll make it too streamlined and it won't really fit any. It'll be like neither here nor there. Maybe people who like RPGs from nowadays might not like it because it's like, oh, it's a little antiquated, and then people who like the original might find it too updated and no one's happy. But they could strike a happy medium like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I've heard satisfies pretty much everyone because it's like understood that it's a little different. It also could just change like it could be like a similar story and not entirely the same story, and then just be its own entity entirely. Like it's, although I don't think that's exactly what they're going for there, but like only time will tell. It's really unclear where they're headed with this remake in particular. But I find it interesting that you mentioned that you prefer the ports over the remakes, because I find that that's not where I stand at all, and I agree with preservation, and that's why I think the best of both worlds I've ever seen when handle this situation is the Master Chief Collection, with when you're playing Anniversary, Halo 2 Anniversary or Halo 1 Anniversary, that you have a button that instantly just switches the graphics and music from back and forth.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
like I'm like, this
cool.
needs to be the standard for this sort of thing. Like I wish the Crash and Spyro remakes did it, but I think there might be too much that's changed to have that feature. But I love that. I love that feature, because that is basically like you have both. It's you have an updated version, but if you want to like take off your nostalgia goggles, you just press the button and go back to the way you played when you were a kid.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then you got the flip side, where against everything that we were just saying was Blizzard's handling of the Warcraft 3 remake, where not only did they just do like kind of a piss poor job, but they also got rid of your capacity to play the older version, unless you're one of the OGs who had like a CD and like the CD key still functioned and everything. Maybe you had a burnt one, who knows?
I have a DRM free version of it though that I bought from Blizzard's website before they released Reforged. I also maybe I don't have the disc anymore. I think it was lent to someone and never returned. But
hate that.
Whatever.
You know who you are if you're listening out there.
Give me back Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that there's companies who are starting to become like tasked with these sorts of remasters and remakes, like Blue Point, and I think Blizzard might have like a team that's kind of new to this, or maybe they had too little time when they were working on Reforged. Because Reforged, I heard I was interested, but then I read some things saying it wasn't that great, and I was like, okay, well then I'll overlook it for now. Yeah, so I didn't play it at all. I just heard things. So okay, I don't think I really missed much there. I never played Diablo 2, and they're remaking that. And that seems like a good entry point for people like me who missed the classic game. Hell, even Final Fantasy VII Remake. I never played Final Fantasy VII, which is like a big like gap in my my gamer catalog. Is that like I didn't play a major game like that. So this seems like a really accessible entry point. But like unlike Diablo 2, that one is kind of its own thing. So I'm like, well, do I have to play 7 and 7 Remake?
That's it, right?
That's more of a problem for people who are very hardcore, like people who collect games like myself, or like people who've been gaming for many years, where it's like I have access to my older collection of games, but now there's like remakes coming out, so I'm torn between like, should I just play my original? Should I get the new one? It's kind of like it's the best case scenario is you never played it and this is your opportunity, and the remake turned out well. That's like everyone's happy. If I had never played Demon's Souls and I love Dark Souls, it would be like not even a real question if to get Demon's Souls. Basically, it's like, of course I'll get the remake.
Yeah.
But because I already played the original, I'm like, well, I suffered enough. I don't know if I could do it again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's one of the problems I have. It's also like it's a problem that doesn't just affect games, but it's like the movie industry as well. And it's like it begs the question sometimes whether like is there like a lack of originality because of the reliance on just using old and tried and true formulas, like not just reusing old mechanics, but just re-releasing old games again and again because it's a easy way to make money instead of making something new and original?
It is definitely an easy way to make money, and I think that's one of the dark sides of it. Is it can become a crutch because there is such a large catalog of quality games that could be justified as being remade, and if someone really wants to commit to that, they probably could and probably would be fairly successful.
And that's the thing that's so devious about it, is that it can easily be disguised as a love letter to fans while still, just making money basically no matter what. So it's nice to see when some companies actually put some work and effort into it, like a la the new Demon Souls remake, which clearly, like that had some polish, that had some respect for the old content for sure. One of my main problems, I guess, with remakes or remasters, where they like really just bump up the graphics and everything, is I feel like you can lose a lot of the original atmosphere. Like say what you will about some Demon Souls, like the new one, like the remastered one, it looks gorgeous for sure, but that gritty, dark, like they had to make it dark because the pixels weren't quite good enough to like the models were good enough. But now that they have it remastered, they want to show off the models. So I understand you want to add more lighting and that kind of thing, but in doing so, you really take away from the original product. I imagine if they had remastered or remade Silent Hill 2, right?
I knew you were going to bring that up because that's what I was thinking of as well.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking.
I'm sure they can do their best to make it look nice and gory and shit, but you just can't. You can't recreate that original sense of fear and dread, because sometimes not showing is more terrifying than showing.
Almost always, I would say.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
say.
The imagination is more powerful than anything that we could program. But yes,
the limitations of the consoles back then to create games like Silent Hill are part of why the atmosphere is what it is. So it becomes kind of a paradox. It's like if you remaster it, you get access to better technology, which in turn could destroy the thing that created the atmosphere in the first place. You get stuck in that kind of dilemma, and I think that it may have been part of what Silent Hill lost along the way towards the sequels was with greater technology and more affordances. Like, we'll make the combat a little more convenient because that's how games should play. But in doing so, it's like it kind of destroys the formula. Or having non-fixed camera angles, it's like, yeah, obviously that's better, but it also takes something out of it. It's the formula, like the spirit of those kinds of games was in the limitations, and now with less limitations, technically things should be better, but it's not always the case, and that's what you're arguing with like the original versions and the atmosphere that's lost. It's definitely a reality, and it's very strange, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly all the details. It's like color schemes, and sometimes it legitimately is just like worse graphics can contribute to a different mood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, definitely.
Has anyone here played Dusk by any chance?
Dusk.
Nope.
Is that? No, I'm thinking of something else. I think where like you play as God.
No, it's you play as a.
Okay.
It's like a Quake era. It looks like Quake basically. It's a Quake shooter, but it's made recently. It's So you know how we went through the phase of like the 16-bit revival with like pixel art games, indie games. That's popular, and I always thought to myself, I wonder if we're gonna get like a PS1 love
like
letter
a really
game.
janky polygon. Yeah,
exactly. So that company, New Blood, they make those style of games. So there's games like, well, Strafe isn't New Blood, but there's Strafe, there's Dusk, and there's a few others by New Blood that I for some reason I can't think of, like a Medieval. But games are basically love letters to those PS1 or even slightly earlier era first-person shooters and action games. And like there is if you watch even a little bit of gameplay of Dusk, there's like this indescribable atmosphere that's there, and it's only there because of how low fidelity the visuals are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that you need bad graphics to achieve a specific feeling. So you're trapped. It's like, well, you have to make the game look less, but like you could strike middle grounds and make it like stylized, but it's ultimately it's like, yeah, sometimes less sharp graphics are good for a feeling that you want to deliver.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting point with the fixed camera angles, and like I guess I'm actually going to use Resident Evil 2 as an example. Like, yes, it's nice to kind of have that almost Resi 4 over the shoulder, like new age control, and it is certainly great in its own merit as a different way to experience that game. But there's something to be said about fixed camera angles and tank controls. Where like you're not really in full
camera
control of
was
yourself.
what it is.
Exactly. I mean, it was a limitation of the system, realistically, but it
It
added
really
so much
wasn't, though.
atmosphere.
It really wasn't, though. If they really meant to make a mobile camera, they could have. But the static camera made it easier to frame shots in a way that would be reminiscent of a slasher movie or a horror movie. A lot of the fixed camera it was a technical choice because implementing a mobile camera would have been difficult, but not impossible. But there definitely was a care for the aesthetic of framing every shot and every angle in a way that was somewhat reminiscent of other horror specific sensibilities, I suppose. I'm not very familiar with horror, so remembering all of those things I learned way back ago is difficult, but
I think it also depends on which games, because I know that for a fact that like Resident Evil, one of the things that they did was to achieve such high quality graphics, they pre-rendered the environments, and it's like one of the reasons why the areas you're in are very static. And I'm not sure. I guess I don't know if they could have achieved a modern era level third person over the shoulder camera. Can't think of many games that achieved it as well in that era of games, like PS1 era. Like it wasn't something like that was maybe as easily achieved, especially when you have pre-rendered environments. I don't know if there were like drawbacks to having it like a follow cam. I don't know if that would have caused any issues. But I know that there's all sorts of crazy technical things going on with survival horror, specifically Resident Evil, because of like the tricks they were using to like kind of cheat, like especially in Resident Evil Remake. I just watched a Donkey video on this where he went into some detail about it, but like about how like there's so many trade-offs being made in the way that they technically designed it, so that they could achieve graphics that are so much more advanced than anything they should have been allowed to do. Like I was looking at it too, and he's even saying like, "Wow, these graphics are good." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're crazy." You're looking at it; it almost looks like a PS3 game sometimes. But it's because they're kind of cheating. Like it's instead of it being a dynamic atmospheres, it's all static. It's all like, okay, they rendered it, throw it in, it's not changing. That's the way the environment looks. Oh, even
Super Nintendo, there's something similar with games like Donkey Kong.
Yes.
Where they pushed way on the 16-bit limitation of what could be rendered by the SNES by simply pre-rendering a bunch of like actual images. Mortal Kombat, same thing.
Yeah, or Star Fox using a chip in the cartridge rather than in the console itself.
And the game was more expensive for it.
Yeah, there's ways to cheat, like, and even the new Resident Evils, like Resident Evil 8. I was looking at, I don't know. Okay, this is my speculation here, but I assume so that they're relying a lot on mega scans. So it's like the hyper dense resolutions contribute to super realistic looking environments in Resident Evil 8. Because when you're looking at the new Resident Evil games, they look like fuck, man. Wow, they are some of the prettiest looking games I've seen.
Oh yeah, like absolute marvels when it comes to like just technology, environmental design, character models. Like for the monsters, like just the visceral way that every single creature in Resi 7 looked. Like it was beautiful, and it was told through that first person perspective. And I think that was a good choice. It was a risky choice because I mean it's Resident Evil, it's Resident Evil. They've never done that before, but I feel like by doing that, giving you that first perspective, they're giving you that immersion while also just like making the environment look great. So like you could just really appreciate all the work they put in as you're running for your life and shitting your pants.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've just finished playing the 3 demos for Resident Evil 8.
Nice.
The third one came out this last weekend, so I got to try that. And yeah, it looks just damn good. And I mean, I know we're getting a bit off topic here because now we're talking about Resident Evil, but
good.
But yeah, no, it's
a
just
pretty relevant franchise to the discussion.
True. It is a franchise that tends to, and with 4 getting remade, which I'm nervous about because I love 4, but you know, I give them. I have a bit more faith after 2 and 3. I know 3 had some negative comments about its length, and I agree, but it was still a good game. 3 is still a great game, the remake, and if they could somehow recapture, it's gonna be hard as hell, but if they can somehow recapture 4's magic, and I would not even hesitate to re-experience. Like 4 is a game that I love to death, and I would love any excuse to go back. Hell, I wanted VR to be the excuse to go back but that's a Quest 2 exclusive, and I
Oh,
have
that's right. Yeah,
a
they
Vive, so I can't fucking get it on my computer.
did. Oh no.
That's the worst.
It's I honestly I hate it. And I think I would only be more upset if I had a Quest 1 because it doesn't work on the Quest 1 either. It's only on Quest 2. So you're like I sold my soul to Facebook and I can't even play it on their own console. It's that's shitty in my opinion. I really don't like that they're doing the whole VR exclusivity, but that's
Yeah, that's a pretty rough thing to have exclusivity for.
It's something so new.
It's like,
Yeah,
it's hard enough and niche enough to get into. Like, you would have thought you'd at least give them access to all the fucking experiences, you know? Like, see, that's why I'm waiting for VR. I'm waiting until there's, like, the one true master race of VR headsets, and hopefully
Steam
everything gets
VR.
made on that. I mean,
Steam VR is
maybe...
the closest we have right now.
That's it,
even
right?
Index can't play 4 VR because of Oculus is rife with exclusives. Same with PlayStation. You can't play Resident Evil 7 VR is only on PlayStation, despite the exclusivity rights having ended already.
Ah.
So like, there's still like benefits to, like, ultimately, let's be real. From what I understand, I don't have an Index obviously, but my friend does, and everything I've heard about the Index is like that's probably the front runner at the moment, but it's also mighty expensive. So these are you have to have a computer that's able to run it properly, and then you have to have the space, and you also have to have $1,000 ready to just throw at something.
Yeah, throw at it, basically. It's like a hedge fund, more or less.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I bought my Vive when it was kind of new, and like, it's a novelty in a way that's like, it really breathes new life into the medium of games, and I know it's not technically the same thing as most remakes and remasters, but playing games that are made again for VR or re-experiencing a game in VR, it does add something kind of special. It really does lend itself to feeling like you're inside of a world that you've always seen, like on the screen. Now you're in a 3D space, and a lot of so I don't know if you know this, but before you play a game in VR, you're put on a home screen, like a wallpaper of sorts.
Yeah.
And that home screen is like a room. And when I first got VR, I would kind of cycle through different rooms to like be my home screen. And I remember I did a Peach's Castle in Mario 64, and it was like,
oh yeah,
it just felt so cool to be like feel like you're standing there in the middle of like the courtyard, or to be in even like the house from The Simpsons, like the living room, The Simpsons. It's things like that are. It's like, have you guys have you tried VR at all? Like,
Yeah, I have.
even little.
I mean,
Okay.
I had the tiniest little, I got pulled into a Rogers store, and he was like, "Oh, this phone's got VR capabilities," and he showed me a little bit, but that was all I've ever fully experienced of VR.
I've
is
played a little bit of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Oh, so good.
Oh, this is cooperative gaming at its best. Forget it. But yeah, I've played a little bit. I've dabbled.
I mean, my VR experience has taken place in the room you're in right now, Julian. I think.
Yeah, that's
Assuming
but
you're in
that's
the
fair.
room I think you're in.
I am, and that's where most of my friends. I'm like, come on over, let's play VR, and like I just put them in a VR helmet, and then I just Snapchat them in VR, fumbling around my room. I'm like, it's
Steal their wallet,
that's like,
you know, all the good stuff.
They'll never know. They're like fighting off a werewolf in VR. I'm like taking it out of their pockets.
Exactly.
But that's honestly, that's part of the reason I even bought one, was so that I could like watch people do it, because I when I first started playing it, I was like, oh, this is really fun, I enjoy this a lot, but the novelty eventually wears off because I played a lot, and I was like, okay, well, the only way to relive that excitement is like have people come over, strap it to their head, and then put them in stuff. And let me tell you, putting people who are older, like people who are like not even gamers, like people from like Gen X, I put like my friend's dad in it one time, and it was, to me, like one of the most priceless experiences I've seen.
Sure.
So he's like, he was just falling all over my room. Like my friend was like tackling him to keep him from jumping into my furniture. He's like holding him down, like holding his arms, he's flailing his arms and screaming, and he's just like, "This is crazy! This is crazy!" And he's like running around my room, and my friend is just like trying to hold him into the wall, like, "Stop moving!"
Oh, that's beautiful. That's actually a beautiful moment, I gotta say, because it is crazy. It's crazy to think that like we're in the generation that kind of like we're stumbling with it. This is still prototype, and like I feel like it's still gonna take maybe another decade to really make it feel like it does in movies and animes and stuff. But even at its current state, like I made a promise to myself that the next time I play Fallout 4 is going to be in VR. That's it. I have no other excuse to go back to it. I already went back the other day, beat all the DLC. Like it's done. I have no other reason to play it except to experience it that way. Like Skyrim's another one that I would love to just feel in VR. You know?
I think that Skyrim more than Fallout, but Skyrim isn't exactly ported too well in the sense that like the combat's a little. So the gameplay itself is kind of fucked if you play those games in VR, but
I would
the
imagine.
feeling of, but feeling like you're there is a different thing. Like I don't have Skyrim or Fallout VR, but like I played it at Blake's, and yeah, the combat is kind of not right, but the feeling of standing in the middle of like I don't know, an icy fjord, is still pretty nice. And that's like the one thing. Like when COVID's done, it like obviously I'd love to have you guys over, just have a VR party or something.
Oh yeah,
they have
sure.
like Alex. So I know Jacob's dying to do that too.
Yep. It's the only thing keeping me going is waiting to play it.
Right.
And see, that's a format that I would love to see more remakes for, like playing like games I've already played, but now made from the ground up to support VR, like Resident Evil 4. Just like I want that. Like that's a cool reason for me to revisit games that I've played already, because it really does feel like a different experience when you change the perspective like that.
Oh, of course.
That's I think the only way that I would become like a kind of a consumer whore and just buy whatever they make. Like Dark Souls VR, fucking sure.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
God,
yeah,
can you
dude.
imagine?
Oh,
Sign me up.
yeah,
the floor,
exactly.
like-
Just the rolls.
Yeah, I don't know how that would ever translate well into VR.
It would
Probably
translate into a lot of vomit on the floor, probably.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Subnautica almost did that to me. I was playing Subnautica in VR and I was like swimming and like doing barrel rolls and I was like, okay, I'm gonna puke. I can't do this.
Exactly. Oh, that must have been nice though. Like even for the first couple minutes, I'd say.
It was cool, like the feeling
Yeah.
of diving like really deep. It like gives you like the sensation that you're really like going. You feel vulnerable because I haven't played Subnautica outside of VR. Funny enough, but in VR it's like the feeling of float. You feel like you're just floating in the middle of the water, and you feel like a presence behind you. Sometimes you're like, okay, I feel like there's probably something there. I want to look around, but it's a little dark. It's a little scary, but it's neat. I played also playing horror games in VR is like that's pretty tough, man. Like I'm really good with horror on a 2D screen, but when you have to play like one of my games is Paranormal Activity.
Oh,
Oh, Paranormal Activity. Yeah, that must be intense in VR.
There's just so
thank
many
you.
dark corners. It's like a house replica, so you're in it like it feels very proportional and it feels like realistic that you're in it. Like imagine playing PT, but in VR, it's like it's tense because you don't know when something's gonna happen. You don't even know what the thing you're waiting to happen is gonna be. Like you're just like something's probably gonna try to hurt me at one point. And I actually didn't really want to play, so I made someone's first VR experience pretty much be Paranormal Activity. And I didn't say too much about what it was. I just said like, "Oh, we'll play this game." And she was going to like there's no monsters, so I was like, "Okay, maybe I haven't seen anything yet." She goes upstairs and she's like, "Oh, what's that?" And there's like a woman with like a hammer like barricading a door, and she just turns around and starts sprinting full force. I'm like, "Run! Run, run." She's like, "You can't die in this game, right?" I'm like, no, I think you might be able to die. She's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Run." She's like, can I die?" And like as she's asking me this, the woman runs up to her and starts bashing her face into the hammer. And the girl in my VR headset is just like on the floor, curled up in a ball. I'm like, I'm
Oh
so
my God.
sorry.
you monster!
It was kind of hilarious, but at the same
Oh,
time, I felt
God.
a little bad. Yeah, it's like, oh shit, 'cause I didn't even know what was gonna happen. I was like, oh, something bad's probably gonna happen, but
Mm-hmm.
who knows? Who knows what it'll be? Turns out it was that.
Yeah, so it turns out it was pretty bad.
Good times.
Yeah. All right, I have a question for everybody, including myself. What would you most like to see in a KOTOR remake? What would be your dream KOTOR remake?
I've never played KOTOR.
Okay, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Okay, well, still, you can answer. You know enough. You've seen the game.
I
liked it.
I know a little of it, sure. What I would like to see I mean, considering I've never played, for me it's real easy. It needs to be eye candy. It needs to be something worth the money I'm going to be putting down for it. So if the remake comes at a discount price, my expectations are not going to be too high. But if the remake is charging a full game price, then I want to, like, date of launch, I want to feel like this isn't a dated game. Like, it has to feel like it's competing with other titles at launch if it's going to be charging the same price as these other games.
Okay.
That's what I want to see.
That's fair.
Well, is it a remake or a remaster? That's the question. Because if it's just a remaster, then I'll agree with Louis. It just has to be nice, simple, easy to look at. But if it's a remake, I mean, I don't know. Maybe a little bit of expanded story on some things, like still kind of... If they can keep the true essence of what the game is, and keep the RPG elements in terms of expansive dialogue and creating who your character is. Like, don't give me a fucking canon Revan character. Don't make me have to play, what's the name of the guy from Dragon Age 2? Drake or whatever? Hawk, close enough.
Yeah.
You know, don't make me play. I mean, like, no offense to the Witcher 3 fans out there, Jacob, but like, don't make me play Geralt. Let me play whoever I want to play. You know, let me make that character. Let me make that custom nonsense person who just does evil things 1 second and good things the next. Because I got bored and decided to swap up the playthrough a bit. Give me choices of character, and as long as like the gameplay's fun, like I'll be sad to see RPG elements go, but like at the same time, if they want to be successful, quote unquote, if they want to have that mass appeal and make some money, then I understand why they have to make it an action-based RPG instead of just an RPG. So I'm almost willing to sacrifice the gameplay if they can keep the rest of what made KOTOR so special for me.
So I'm just wondering what like the combat would even look like if they went the action route. Like, are we talking Jedi Fallen Order level of like reactivity based combat, like Dark Souls, or are we talking about like Dragon Age Inquisition, where it's like kind of a hybrid of not turn based, but like CRPG style combat, or
Well, if they want to stay more true to what it was, it would be more like a Dragon Age situation than something else. But that we don't know yet that that's going to be the case, and we could make the case to go away from that as well for a broader appeal.
That's the thing. I think that I don't know if I really see the Dragon Age style combat taking off as much these days. I feel like the broader appeal would be like more action based, but even if it is action based, I have a hard time imagining like what kind of system they're going to use for that. Like, it's not clear to me what makes more sense in a game where you could play as a gunslinger and a lightsaber wielder. It's hard for me to picture how they choose to go about that.
Are they just gonna kind of take a very big note from Final Fantasy VII Remake and kind of make it like Final Fantasy 15 or Ala Kingdom Hearts, where like you have access to all your abilities and whatnot, but you have a main attack button, you've got like a special dash, you got a dodge button, etc., etc. Like they could go that route, and I could still see it working, but it's going to be challenging to really give that same kind of feeling of freedom that the other games gave. Like, yeah, okay, the system was kind of aged, and I can't aged back then, and I can't really fault them for that too much. But like, yeah, I feel like if they just make you a lightsaber dude who has the Force, and you could just unlock every single power because that's just how games are nowadays. I don't know. I feel like they're taking away from it, and they're also, to an extent, shooting themselves in the foot, because that just like exterminates any other subsequent playthrough. Like, if they do go Jedi Fallen Order route, like I'm never going to play that game again. Not because it was bad; it was a good story and such. But I feel like there was at no point did I have any choices to make. At no point did anything really really call me back. I don't know, Jacob. How about you? You're an OG KOTOR man.
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm not like married to the rule system of KOTOR, and I wouldn't have a problem with Fallen Order style gameplay as long as it did still have, options and like to me, like the worry of being forced to play as one character, and it shouldn't even be a worry because there's no way they can do that, and if they do, then it's gonna fail because that's not what KOTOR is. So I'm less worried about that. It's more what I want is basically I want KOTOR, but to play and look like Mass Effect with lightsabers. Obviously, be a little different gameplay wise because it's more lightsaber focused than gun focused, but presentation and all that's what I want.
So shooting when you're in armed like a firearm combat, it's Mass Effect, and when you're in melee combat, it's Dragon Age.
Yeah, something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so long as they can make both elements of combat fun and also keep the once again, if they say they're moving away from RPG elements, is that strictly for combat or is that also just for like gameplay wise? Like, am I not going to have choices anymore? I feel like Mass Effect does a pretty good job at like kind of keeping that medium, right, and giving you choice while still kind of pushing a story forward. But like you could do some really cool shit in KOTOR, and I feel like if they end up taking that stuff away, then you're not really left with the same game anymore.
Yeah, well, again, it's kind of the same thing. If they take that stuff away, then I have absolutely zero interest.
Yeah.
Because that's what's the point of remaking the game if it's not the game anymore?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But I would just want the same game, but with the presentation of Mass Effect.
You want something?
And better graphics, because it's 2021. So yeah, not the facial animations from Andromeda, please.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah, that I guess something else. Like I feel like I shouldn't need to say this, but a polished, finished product. If you're gonna take the time to remaster a game, make it good. I don't want to see bugs unless it's like a love letter to fans, like with the Ocarina of Time, where they're like, "Oh, you could leave a few of these speedrunning bugs in it, whatever." Like that's okay. But like, yeah, no facial bugs, no random day one fucking crashes and patches up the wazoo. Give me a finished game. That's also part of the experience, I guess, that we don't really get anymore. Is I feel like I'm never playing a finished product. There's always so much DLC, be it cosmetic or content. Like there's something to be said about just popping in an old disc on the old Xbox, the fucking Duke, and just playing KOTOR.
Yep.
I think that the problem is.
Yeah.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Just really quick. If they do something stupid, like with Final Fantasy VII, and they just break up KOTOR into like 4 games for each planet, I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be pretty rough. I'd like to believe that they wouldn't do that unless they, again, like Final Fantasy VII, they somehow they flesh out the story so much that one planet is like 20 hours worth of gameplay.
Yeah,
but
it would need to be pretty intense.
Yeah,
to justify.
But the thing is that it's not entirely the fault of the development team that this is happening. This is also kind of on the consumers as well. Like it's clearly successful as a means of making money. Like this works. And I think the people buying it are just as much to blame as the the business aspects of the game putting in no, I don't think the people like making the game were like, oh man, it would be really I'm really passionate about selling a red outfit for the character for $5. Like I don't think anyone really wants that. It's just like they purely look at it from a business perspective, and there's like the marketing team, and they're like, this company, X company, put in this thing, and that's made them like an extra few million this year. Well, we're just going to do that too, and it keeps working, so we're just going to keep doing it. And that's why we now have Mortal Kombat, where you can buy easy fatalities that you can use as a consumable.
Oh,
buy them with real money. And I remember seeing that being like, that's the peak.
Yep,
hit
this is
the
the
peak
end.
of shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's like microtransactions. I just don't see them. The only way they could be worse is if they were mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't need to buy them, which is kind of at least nice. But I hate that it's like it just feels like really like anything you can monetize pretty much anything in the game, and it feels kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to believe like there's so many things there's so many contributing factors to like what you're concerned about. Like you want a finished game with less bugs, but the current infrastructure allows for games to be sold at full price and then patched later as time goes on. So it's like, well, we could just sell it now, make all our money now, and then patch it over the next few years. It's like,
Yeah.
they have no motivation not to do that because the money is there. They'll make the money.
Look how much money Cyberpunk brought in. It's insane how much money
Yeah.
they make
Yes.
doing exactly that.
Even with the refunds, you know.
Oh yeah, the refunds were only 30,000, I think.
Yeah.
30,000 refunds.
No, they made like some ridiculous amount of money. I can't remember what the number was, but I saw it the other day. I'm like, that's a lot of money for a fucking alpha.
It's like half a
Yeah,
half a
right.
$1 billion, I think they made on it or something.
Yeah, that sounds
Bonkers.
right. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
It's rough because like Cyberpunk in particular, they made a shit ton of money, but they did lose something along the way. Like the public opinion may have shifted slightly towards CD Projekt Red being like, oh, they're perfect. Like there's companies where you're like, oh, they're perfect, they'll never screw up, and then if they do, your like faith is forever kind of tainted. You're like, and now you can always be like, well, remember when this happened? If someone's like, oh, CD Projekt Red's perfect, when then someone will always be like, yeah, but remember when Cyberpunk came out? Like that's forever on their permanent record. People can always say that now, and it's like, I don't know in in theory, I guess that would affect sales slightly, but I don't know like tangibly how much that is actually going to affect like their next game. If they release like, okay, Witcher 4, like I can't imagine they won't make money on it. Like they'll make money.
Yeah.
There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, they'll definitely find a way. I'd like to think I would wait, but I can't promise anything.
Oh man, I don't know. If they presented it in a certain way, like if they're marketing it and they're like, build your own Witcher, live through a very with their own origin story at like different parts of the world of the Witcher, and it's like it's going to be 10 times bigger and just as dense as The Witcher 3, and exploration is expanded, and like you can run your own Kaer Morhen, and like there's like a billion things to throw in. You're going to be like, oh, like stars are going to be shining around your monitor, and you're going to be like, I have to get it.
It's like,
Yeah.
I no longer have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, that's it. Like they could just say, if that's the best thing that these marketing companies can do, and the devs can do as well. It's like they just need like a few magic features that work really well, so that in a trailer they could be like, "Oh yeah, and we added this," and everyone's like taking out their wallets, like, "Fuck, what am I gonna do? I have to
Throwing
Yeah,
money
exactly.
at their computer screens, just
Yeah.
The decision was made for me.
Yeah,
There's
just
nothing I can do about it now.
Yeah.
putting your credit card in the disk drive, just like, yeah.
Just take it. Take it!
Take it. Don't let me see it, but take it.
What's your story?
All right. I have another question, maybe to wrap up remaster talk. What game would you most like to see get the remaster or remake or any sort of second life? What's the game you'd most like to see get the modern treatment? Or just some kind of revival?
Okay, I need to think about that.
I would like to see the Paper Mario series honored. Or Paper Mario.
how do
Sorry,
you
not just
remake
Paper.
something like that though?
Not, that's not even a remake. I guess. Give me a port.
Yeah, it would be
You know?
for essentially. It already looks pretty good. Actually.
Like you
Yeah,
got,
it
you've
literally
got
can't look
such
any
a
better.
strong graphical signature that like I don't think you can ever remake something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not, nothing short of maybe just, some higher resolutions and stuff.
Maybe. I mean, like, if they... See, that's the thing, though, because that's what I'll give the new Paper Mario. Graphically, it was gorgeous. Gameplay-wise, it lacked horrifically. But if you just took those graphics and put it on, like, let's say, even just the first Paper Mario, not even Thousand Year Door, I don't know. I can't say whether or not it would make it good or not, or once again, if it would kind of take away from that original atmosphere. Like the old resolution, the old pixels, the old kind of grainy way of looking at the world, kind of added to the charm more than anything else. So I don't know. I don't know if throwing a fresh coat of paint and like some bloom on it would really be enough to make me want to buy it again. I mean, just give me a fucking port at this point. I don't care. Nintendo, if you're listening, just like you've already got the NES and the SNES as emulators on your console, just give me the fucking N64 or at least Game Boy. Like, come on. I want to play Oracle of Seasons again.
So that actually brings me to my point. You saying Oracle of Seasons. I think that any game that was technically, incredibly technically underpowered and part of a major franchise, games like Oracle of Ages and Seasons, or even more, you can go further back on NES and say games like Metal Gear, games like that are part of an overarching popular franchise, but have been obscured by time and definitely are harder to play today. Those are the games I think would benefit the most from like a Demon's Souls-esque style, like complete revamp. It's like I've always wanted to play the Metal Gear 1 and 2 from NES, but with like modern day graphics, because they're still relevant to the story. So just, I don't know, put it in the Fox engine, and I don't know, like they could probably do that. Like just combine Metal Gear 1 and 2 into one game, and it could be kind of short. I feel like Konami could just make a shit ton of money reusing assets from Metal Gear Solid 5, and like would work pretty well. But even games like Oracle of Ages and Seasons, I guess they could technically go the route of Link's Awakening and do something like that, or pretty much anything. Even the original Ninja Gaiden games, they could do something like the NES ones. There's just so many options for that era of games to be remastered, or especially, you know what, especially the old Final Fantasies, like 1 through 6.
Oh yeah.
If they just like turned it from I mean, they're still pretty in their sprite work and everything. Maybe they could just bundle in the original with the remake, and you could play it kind of like Dragon Quest 11, where you can play it as a 2D like classic RPG, or you could play it in its pretty like 3D version. So doing that to any of the Final Fantasies between 1 and 6, I think could be really, really cool. Because I think 1 through 3 are kind of like underrepresented a little bit, like the original 1 through 3, not 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Even 4, 5, 6 would benefit from being turned into whatever Final Fantasy 7 remake is. But yeah, that's my opinion on the remakes and the games that really need it or would benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I would love to see Morrowind get a fresh coat of paint while retaining all of its other top-tier qualities. Besides Morrowind... I'd love to see like an actual from the ground up remastering of the old Baldur's Gate games, because like the things that the enhanced editions are just that, they're just, you can play in 4K now and there's a bit of extra content, but it still more or less looks like it did 20 years ago. I'd love to see the Baldur's Gate games look like the new Baldur's Gate game.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
For some reason, that just reminded me of like the Capcom. We were talking about Resident Evil. I'm thinking like there were plenty of those interesting PS1 era horror games like Parasite Eve or even Dino Crisis that could benefit from like a Resident Evil style remake look. I think there would be a good market for that, actually.
Yeah, definitely would think so.
Or Earthbound, but one can dream.
Yeah. One step at a time.
Yeah.
Did everybody answer?
Did Louis?
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time with this one because I there's a lot of games that are very close to me that I'm like Dan mentioned both Oracles. You mentioned Parasite Eve, and I couldn't agree more. But I don't know the extent of how much change I'd be willing to take before, I feel like they've denatured some of those games. Like Parasite Eve, if you give me Parasite Eve but just fresh coat of paint with like top-notch graphics, then I'm all for it. But if they do anything to change how the game is played, then that's not the game I played, and that's not the game I'm gonna want to play. For Oracles, I just hope they don't do what they did with Link's Awakening and publish something that's got like known frame rate issues that just never get patched, and essentially making what's a top-notch game already feel like it's chugging either because of the console it's playing on or because it's poorly programmed to be on the console it's playing on. So like I'm a little on the fence about seeing some of those games be ported, but if I have to pick one, I think it'd be Parasite Eve. I absolutely love that game. It's one of the few horror titles that I actually got into.
Very nice. I actually have not played them, despite having them on PS1.
Delicious. The first two were absolutely delicious. Tactical
I should-
RPG with like, oh man. It's
I really want to. Yeah, that's why I bought them. I was like, I really want to play them, but so many games, man.
Like they managed to do a shooter RPG that makes sense in that like your positioning on the battlefield and the weapon you have kind of matter, because some weapons are going to have shorter reach than others, so you'll have to get closer to enemies to shoot them. So no, it was a really good game. Definitely worth a play if you have them handy.
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe I'll just play Third Birthday on PSP, and then that'll be it.
I mean, that's a completely different style of game, but
No, I know. I also know that you don't like that one as much, so I'm just
I
trying to be annoying.
hate with a passion. But I'm not gonna hate on someone who wants to try it for themselves. But I really dislike Third Birthday.
I probably wouldn't start with the third game in the franchise, but I do have it on PSP just because it was cheap and I picked it up at one point, so it's just there. But much like most of my games in my collection.
Yeah.
Just chilling there. Forever promised to be played, but some of them never will be.
A lot of games in my Steam library have had that promise made to them.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, but I was
Classic
drunk. What can I
lying.
say?
Yeah, I was stoned when I bought that game and said I was going to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, if there was anything, unless there's something else someone likes to add, we could wrap up our remaster discussion there, and move on to some more Q&A stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's good to put a nice little end note on that discussion.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Cool. So, first question of our Q&A segment of our podcast / stream / we're still figuring it out. What
Good way to put it.
is the most underrated game you've played?
Ooh.
I mean, Kenshi, right? I
Kenshi
can't really.
underrated though.
Yeah.
I mean,
How
I'd
do you-
say yeah. Can you really tell me there's a huge following for Kenshi, or have you not heard about it until you saw that I put 400 hours into it? in,
Oh
like,
no,
3
it was
months?
on my radar before you put all that time.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're also a bit of a freak like me, and you like masochism and stuff. So
That
like,
I am.
I'll give you a free
Don't
pass
king
on this
shame,
one,
please.
right? But Jacob,
I've heard it first from you, but I've seen it plenty of times since.
has it? Oh, since. Well, that's just the Google algorithm, like listening to our conversations like they do all the time.
I mean,
let's be real for a
I've
hot
also
second
seen it
here,
mentioned
right?
in videos that I thought had nothing to do with it. So,
Really?
oh yeah.
Man, so maybe I was just the fool who was unaware of it.
I was watching a video about CRPGs, and they actually discussed Kenshi in it.
I guess it is technically a
It is,
CRPG.
definitely. It's got huge CRPG energy.
And we gotta stop talking about Kenshi before I reinstall that shit.
Just do it. You know you want to.
It's literally the kind of game that I have to like. I've reinstalled and uninstalled it many times just because it's not healthy. I'll say this right now. It's
It's
not a
like
healthy game.
cigarettes. It once you did.
basically.
Yeah.
And I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Yeah. I guess by underrated we could define it as either generally not loved by people in general, like if you felt like Dragon Age 2 was underrated which it's
Right.
not because it's trash. But there's an example of something that definitely didn't get a lot of love, even from the critics for the most part. That would be considered underrated, if you liked it. But then maybe there's something wrong with you. But no, I'm kidding.
Maybe it means your brain doesn't work so good.
Yeah, maybe you don't know what good video games are. So yeah, something like that. It's the most underrated game I've played. Let me just take a peek at my Steam library real quick.
Yeah. Swear to God, if you say The Witcher 3, Jacob, I'm coming through the screen.
Yeah, Witcher
It's a
3
little
underrated.
gem that no one's heard of.
No,
Yeah,
but
right.
I can say The Witcher 1.
Good. Guys, you shouldn't have encouraged him. Look what we're getting now.
I'm right. I mean, sorry, you're right. I'm so sorry.
I'd have to look at the critics of a lot of the games I've played because I don't know that I've played a lot of jank shit.
Is it like by? I guess it depends if you're saying underrated by critics or by.
Yeah, there's there are definitely different
general public.
criterias.
But in some way, shape, or form. Maybe
Game
it didn't
that
sell as
flew
well as it
under
oughta.
the radar.
Oh,
You got a bit of a tough one here.
That's a toughie. That's definitely a toughie.
well, actually, I have a bit of an easy answer for some of us. At
Mhm.
least an option, given its reception. Dark Souls 2.
No, I can't accept that. It's not underrated.
It definitely. Well, what do you mean it's not underrated?
It's the least well rated of the Dark Souls game, but at the time of launch, Dark Souls 2 was like the hottest potato you could get your hands on.
Well, here's the thing.
Is it
Are we
not
talking about
just
indie
Zelda?
games or just like games that kind of don't get the
Any-
respect they
any-
deserve?
any.
'Cause that's right. Because that's a little bit of a different criteria. I mean, I agree with you. The Dark Souls 2 was a fucking gem, and it deserves more love from its community. You fucking selfish bastards. Got me thinking there.
I can go now and kill some time
Yeah,
if you
sure.
want.
Go
What do you
ahead.
think?
Go
Go ahead.
for it.
Fill in the silence.
It's basically I have a top 3 because I know I'm terrible at making decisions, but 2 of them are indie and they're like more narrative, and one of them is just an critically underrated game. I would say for indie, I'd give it to Wander Song and to Franbo, which are liked
Frambo's
by
amazing.
yeah, they're loved by a specific group of people, but I think generally speaking, it's not like one of those big indie games that everyone knows about. That I wish they would, because both of those games are really special. Like especially Wonder Song is like the kind of game that you play 5 minutes of and you're like, okay, I see what they're doing here, and it's I guess it's kind of neat, but I don't need to play this. But if you put in like 30 minutes or even 45 minutes, you start to see that you're like, wait, there's more to this game than meets the eye. There's probably something to see out here. And every chapter of the game is so dramatically different, and the whole game you play is basically a bard, and you have like the only way to interact with the game is by singing. So you sing different notes. So depending on what like notes you're singing, you interact with everything differently. And the amazing amount of ways they turned it into game mechanics. There's like every level, there's a new way of using singing. It's like you don't get a new power. You're still using the same singing, but the way that your environment responds to singing changes. So you have to learn how each place, like what it is about the singing that changes the environment, and you have to kind of pick that up. And there's some really, really cool thematic things that happen. Franbo is just a good story. And for a critically underrated game, I feel weird picking this because it's become popular after a while. Like it started to become renowned for being an underrated gem is God Hand on PlayStation 2.
Oh yes. Oh, I love God Hand.
So you know, but you guys actually know, like you knew Frambo and God Hand, so I feel good about that because God Hand was a game when I was like really young. It was like one of my first days on IGN, and I saw a trailer for it, and I was like, that looks pretty cool. And I sent it to my friend, and he bought a PS2 with God Hand. Like, he was about to buy a PS2, and he's like, okay, fine, I'll pick up God Hand.
Right.
And like, I played it at his place, and I borrowed it from him and played the absolute shit out of it. I was like, that game is awesome. And then I looked at IGN's review and saw I got like a 3 on 10, and I was like, what?
You
Like,
fools!
3? Like,
Oh yeah.
I get you can find some of it not good. I mean, you're allowed, but 3. I felt like 3 was so unreasonable.
Mhm.
The game
It is pretty bad.
incredible. Yeah, and the game is like I think it was really ahead of its time in terms of it's like a beat 'em up, but the number of moves that you can customize, and like there's like over 100 different moves, and you can customize your combos. But for me, the part that like that's cool and all, but for me, the part that like the reason I love the game is because you have like multiple like crazy moves you're allowed to do. So whenever you want, if you have the resources, you can press like a button and you could do like a mega move, and it's so stupidly over the top that it's like funny every time you do one. So there's one where you're like you fake out a punch and then you kick someone in the nuts and then they fall over with a purple face, and you're like, and you hear like a little ding and you laugh, and like there's an audience like canned laughter. Or you could just like literally pull out a baseball out of your ass and like hit someone into the sky, and then you like put your hand above your forehead to like look at how far they're going. There's a little twinkle, and they're just gone. Like you can just knock someone into space. That's like, okay,
Yeah.
I want to use my move. Or you unleash the God Hand and you just become 10 times faster, and you could just like rapid fire beat the shit out of someone, and it's very, very satisfying. You have to button mash a lot in that game too, because like every enemy type has their own like a punishment move, where like kind of like Bayonetta, if you guys played that, where like
Yeah.
you know you can punish enemies. Like God Hand did that too, where it's like if you hit an enemy enough, they get kind of stunned. Like different enemy types have a move where you can just kind of grab them and do like something bad to them. I don't know how to put it. Like you could like suplex like big guys, or you could the girl characters, they definitely went a certain route with, considering they're all like in like leather outfits, and then if you stun a woman, you can like bend her over your knee and spank her into a wall, and
Oh, wow.
that's that was a creative choice.
Classic.
With like
Classy.
every enemy, like you could just do something stupid to them, like there's like one guy where you just like pummel your knee into their forehead, you just smash it, and the faster you press the button, the faster you do the action. So it looks like you can't even follow your character's hands anymore because you're moving so fast of punching them in the face. It's very, very like Dragon Ball Z-esque satisfying. I love it. That's my plug for God Hand. Did that buy you guys enough time?
That did.
yeah.
I don't know what it is you said that kind of clued me into the answer I was gonna give, but there's something in there you said that helped me out.
Awesome. Perfect.
And I will go for if there's anyone among you guys or in our audience that like Metroidvania kind of games, then they owe it to themselves to play Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight, because it's a beautiful gem. I love it. I cannot say enough good things about it. It's just so good. So satisfying to play.
Yeah,
So-
I do have that game. I just got it in a bundle, but I've never played it. I just heard it was good.
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
anything about
it's really amazing. It's really like simple story. There's not too much fluff to it. Your power set and abilities is pretty much like textbook Metroidvania, where you got a melee attack, a ranged attack, and over the course of the game, you'll pick up a few things that are gonna add to your power pool. One and most notable of which is the ability to turn into a cute little kitty.
Huh.
Um,
I'm expecting that.
there's a lot of elements of challenge too, because there's basically a hardcore mode where every hit kills you. There's also reward to playing on those ridiculous difficulties, because beating every boss without taking damage will yield you a special item. And no, there's a lot of good things about this game. It makes the exploration and just the interactions that you have with the few characters you meet feel very potent and very good. I just love that game from the beginning to the end of it. It's just really good.
Nice.
Good,
I
alright.
got a couple. I got a couple to throw out there. Start with the more recent one. But I would say Greedfall is underrated. Definitely one of the most interesting and enjoyable BioWare-esque RPGs I've played, well, since BioWare died.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. You know, it's got a unique fantasy setting where it's, you know, you're heading to this magical island, and it's kind of like a 17th century colonial vibe, and there's guns and magic and swords. There's a good cast of characters. A surprisingly powerful story, and just, you know, there's a lot of the things that you loved about BioWare games. You know, the world building, the simple but still, you know, powerful story. And yeah, I just wish I got a bit more attention so that the team behind it could, you know, if they had a bit more money, a bit more resources to them, they could possibly put out something really special. As for something a little more obscure, just a favorite of my childhood, was the Punisher game on the Duke.
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the combat was, you know, surprisingly a lot of fun. Very, very enjoyable to shoot the guns. The interrogations were great. You could do some really messed up stuff to the, you know, people you're fighting against, the gangsters and other scum, like dunk their heads into a pool of piranhas, or you know, slowly push their face to a drill or a saw or a wood chipper, for that matter.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, and there were violence options in the graphics and stuff, but boy, you let it all go, it's glorious, and you know, definitely I felt did a good job for making you feel like Punisher, because it was violent. It was also like a surprisingly good story from a comic book perspective. It's not just going into like crack houses and shooting people. It's like Iron Man shows up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and a few others. Fuck, I can't. I know it's the only one I can really remember, but I know there's a few other well-known cameos as well. Kingpin is involved as well, I believe.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Makes sense. No,
Yeah,
no,
makes
yeah,
sense.
it's a really involved comic book story. It's not just go kill gangbangers for 10 hours. It's like kill gangbangers for 2 hours and then realize there's a lot more going on, and meet Iron Man and do a bunch of other cool stuff. And oh, my favorite moment from the game. There's like a mob family, right? And you're, you know, working to cut them down and stuff, and you kill one of the sons of the boss, and there's a funeral being held, and the Punisher manages to sneak inside the casket of the person he killed. And when you're
Oh my God.
and the mission starts, you're in the casket, and you're like, you know, third person view of the camera over the casket, and you just see the crowd of all the other gangsters mourning and crying and stuff, and then you just pop the lid of the coffin off, and you come out with a huge machine gun and just cut them all down.
Jesus Christ.
Also, fun
Brutal.
fact, it was made by the guys. They're get people. The next game from those people, Saints Row.
Really?
Oh wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah, I love the Saints Row series.
That's
yeah.
like a parody video game. Parody
Mhm.
video games. Well, at least Saints Row 2 through 4 were.
Yeah.
Can't kill this thing.
Those are good choices, though. I mean, the Punisher game I've never played. It sounds a bit like it was inspired or similar to Manhunt, and it's like brutality.
Mhm.
Yeah, it probably was. Yep. Those are around the same time, I think.
Yeah, same console generation.
Yeah. No, yeah, they definitely went all in. I don't think the game could be made today. It's that violent.
Yeah.
Especially with modern graphics. Like, oof.
I don't know. Last of Us 2 is pretty violent too, eh? Like,
Yeah, but it checks all the. You know, I'm not gonna get into it. No, I'm not taking the bait. I'm sorry.
I wasn't trying.
I know you weren't
bait
trying. I'm just, it's myself. I'm baiting myself.
That's funny. I'm not taking the bait.
But the Greedfall also was an interesting choice. I really wanted to play it, and I wouldn't worry too much about them financially because they are Spiders is like an impossibly funded company. Like their games keep underselling, and they just keep doing fine. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of magic is going on here, or whatever. But you know what? They are at least trying new things, like with Technomancer. which
Yeah.
was like I didn't play it, but I looked at it. I'm like, you know what? At least these are cool, unique ideas. This is kind of what we need, even if the games aren't like maybe the same
As
caliber
polished, yeah.
as or as polished as more expensive made games, but I respect them for trying things that are new, and even just the setting that you said, like the 17th century colonial era. Like
But it's
how
still its
many
own
games?
entire fantasy world. It's not our world. It's just
Yes.
a totally other world with that flavor put over it.
That flavor doesn't even exist in like more than 90% of games. I'd say like 99% of games don't
Yeah.
use that era. Like,
Mhm.
it's a really weird era to choose, like Assassin's Creed 3 or like I don't know, Risen maybe, and even
Yeah.
Risen I think is
Oh, yeah.
before
Vision's
that.
more pirate than anything, but close
Yeah.
enough, I guess.
But it's like hard to find like a game in that era or with that flavor,
Yeah.
and then
Can't
add in
even-
adding in the fantasy aspect really drives home its uniqueness as a like how it's basically the only game like that. I don't think there's a single other game in that like in that kind of world.
Yeah, there's none other I can think of, certainly.
And how many games can you say that about where you're like, well, the setting is like once like it's like this the setting doesn't exist anywhere else. Like
Yeah.
there's so few games that can do that, and I think they deserve some respect for pulling that off.
Yeah, and I'd say, you know, something we've talked about a bit in other episodes, that they are like maybe one of the few true B-tier studios still out there.
Yeah.
Because their games
100%.
are, you know, unapologetically B-tier. But being B-tier, you know, gives them the more freedom to do these unique settings and all the other stuff they did with their other games. Like, was it Technomancer, right?
Mhm.
That's what it's
Yep.
called?
Mars Warlogs as well.
Yeah. And I would love to see it get a bit more love, because then if, you know, they can put a bit... Because, like, you can tell when playing Greedfall, you know, certain areas where the budget was cut. Like, there's, like, 3 distinct factions. And, like, you know, lore-wise and, you know, with some of the characters at least, you know, you can see they look different from each other. But the layout and architecture of their home base is all identical. Like, the
I've heard
layout-
this.
layouts of the rooms and the style, like, and it sucks because, you know, you could really, you know, take the time to really diversify the looks of these factions through that, but it's just something they weren't, you know, couldn't afford to do, I guess. And it's a shame, because little things like that, you know, could take that game and, you know, put it up another tier when you have that extra layer of world building and immersion and such. But still a lot of fun, and combat was interesting. A nice mix of magic, swords, and guns. Yeah. Good old-fashioned BioWare-esque RPG. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a bunch of shout-outs that I could do for, like, the older consoles that people might not be familiar with. Like, if you're playing on a NES and you want to play something underrated, Faxanadzu is definitely a good game to play. On Super Nintendo, if you can get your hands on a cartridge of Star Ocean, then please do. If you can download a ROM, then I highly encourage. If you like your good old turn-based JRPGs, then Star Ocean, delicious game that actually forces you to make some choices that you don't even know you're making until you get to the point where they matter. It's a very interesting game. I mean, on Game
The old
Boy,
Witcher
and
3.
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Definitely needs more attention.
Obviously.
But yeah, if you're on Game Boy, Lufia Legend Returns was definitely an interesting roguelike game. Roguelike element game RPG words. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of gems if you just dig a little beneath the surface.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Yes, please.
All right. So, it's a good one. Oh God, I just got annihilated by some creature. Yeah, I haven't really been like
Oh,
focusing while I'm playing, so I am in a bad spot for more. You can't really not focus on Morrowind if you want to.
Yeah, Morrowind's gonna kill you. Morrowind.
Yeah,
wants to
yeah,
win.
yeah. It demands your attention.
Yeah,
Or
and I'm just
demands your
gonna
life.
explore and fuck around and such. But next question is, what's the most replayable game you've ever played?
It's the most replayable game.
I mean, I'm gonna have to exclude from that list right away all the idle games I play, because they're built on the idea that they're replayable forever. Oh man, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
That's a toughie.
Fudge, Jacob.
Yeah. Well, I could thank Julian for that one.
I mean,
That was one of Julian's good questions.
thanks, Julie.
Anytime.
I mean, I'm actively, as we speak, replaying Breath of the Wild for like the 5th time.
Jesus.
Why? What is there even
Because
to
I
replay?
love
there?
it.
And
Honestly,
I'm
I
hating
feel
on
like
it.
just the way
And
you
I'm
can
hating
interact
on
with the
it
world
more
is
than I should.
beautiful.
Because I loved Breath of the Wild. But I don't
yeah.
know that it'd be the
I'm-
most replayable one.
So I guess the reason for me it's 5. It's because when I first, my first experience with Breath of the Wild, I actually played it on the Wii U because I didn't have a Switch at the time,
Okay.
but my brother I think had a Wii U, so I grabbed that and I beat it, and it was gorgeous. And then the Master Mode came out, so I bought the DLC, and then I beat the Master Mode. And then I bought the Switch, which changed my life.
Oh,
So I
man.
bought it once again on the Switch, with the Master Mode included. And then I played through. Actually, yes. Okay. So this is my 4th time. Sorry, not 5th. Because then I played through the Master Mode on the Switch the first time, and now I'm playing through the regular mode on the Switch for the 4th time, just to kind of enjoy it.
Lord.
The world is it's so fun to be in, and just to experiment with. Like they've done a lot with like a very limited physics engine. And I don't know.
Oh,
Like,
I just heard
I'd
one
like
of your
to
game
see more.
noises.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, yeah. That was interesting. It threw me back so much.
Right. And I guess also just for nostalgia, right? Like, fucking Breath of the Wild 2 will be coming out this year, and I'd like to kind of have its, sequel fresh, I guess, or like its prequel fresh. Yeah, I don't know. And not to say it's an underrated game at all, because it's definitely not. I mean, like, it got praised to no fucking end. Are there things wrong with it? For sure. The world is very empty for the most part, considering how much is in it, which is where I think that they can do so well with Breath of the Wild 2, where they are going to be reusing most of Hyrule, but they said that they're going to be doing something to it. Now, my personal theory is that it's going to be like some kind of time travel shenanigans, because Zelda loves their time travel. But I guess I'm getting a little bit off
I mean,
topic
Link
here.
is the hero of time.
Well, that version.
Certainly
of him,
not the hero of spice. Like,
right? Well, you don't want a cooking-based Zelda game? Come on, what's wrong with you? Innovate.
I thought that's
Cooking
what
Link.
Breath of the Wild was.
I mean, it pretty much is. Let's be real. Yeah.
Man, most replayable of them all.
It's tough.
It's tough because the answer can very much vary, not only from person to person as to what makes it replayable, but just from moment to moment as to why I would replay a game over and over. I think games of the Elder Scrolls series in general have insane replayability, Skyrim excluded, because and I'll get to why, but they have insane replayability just because you kind of get stuck in the beginning as to how you're gonna tackle the game because you get to pick your major skills, and then from there, basically the rest of the game unfolds before you, following the playstyle you picked. So a game like this, like, there's something to be said about just restarting the game and doing a playthrough with something that for you would be extremely counterintuitive. Like doing the whole sneak illusion magic build can be because it's a very different approach to everything, where you gotta kind of have to frame the encounters to like, okay, can I deal with this? Is there someone around I can go crazy or whatever? So there's a lot of replayability for this. The reason I exclude Skyrim is because Skyrim doesn't lock you the way the previous iterations did. And you can just on a dime decide to completely change your playstyle and just keep playing. So it doesn't really encourage subsequent and multiple playthroughs, or at least not as much as the previous titles did.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm not including Fallout in all of this is because ultimately a gun's a gun. And you can change minutia about how you tackle a lot of things in Fallout, but ultimately you're playing a shooter. And that's always going to feel... You're always going to be stuck with that playstyle of shooting people dead.
Yeah, I definitely say Skyrim or Elder Scrolls is more, just by its nature, replayable than Fallout, for like you said. But I think you're thinking too much about Fallout 4 when you say it's all just the same, which is fine because it is in that case.
Yeah.
But the older Fallout, like it's a stretch to call Fallout 3 a shooter because boy does it not shoot well.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
That much is true.
And like yeah, chances are you're gonna have a gun in your hand, but you know, especially in those older ones, you could do like explosives builds, you can do melee weapon builds, you can do. I guess it really comes down to how much you can, you know, differentiate different weapon types. And, you know, like the older games, you know, felt different to be an energy weapons expert than, you know...
guns or big guns.
Yeah. Like, there was some distinction. I agree it's not as pronounced as, like, the difference between casting spells and swinging a sword. But, yeah, it's still there, at least in the older ones. What else is replayable? Well, I can give a bit of a cop-out answer and just say...
KOTOR?
No, like a real cop-out answer and say, like, Rocket League in sports games.
Yeah, those don't count because they're based on their replayability. Any sports game, any esports game. Like
What about roguelikes?
Same deal, they're meant to be played multiple times. Like, I think it's unfair to pin those games against games that might not have been designed with being replayed in mind.
Oh, you know, it's silly that we haven't said this yet. Dark Souls. I think it's pretty fair to say that Dark Souls is replayable.
That's very true. Actually,
Right?
very true. Yep.
I see. It's for that. It's
is,
unique, right? Because like, you're always getting the same experience generally. Like you're still fighting the same bosses and enemies, but I guess just the build you have, the way you go about it is so different, and like it's so challenging and rewarding that it does what it needs. It gives me my dopamine kick when I fucking beat Ornstein and Smo. No matter how many times I do it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have the complete opposite opinion of like I know Dark Souls is replayable, but it's the kind of game that when I beat a really hard game, I'm like I beat it and I put it away and I'm like I shall never look at you again. I'm like I have defeated you. We are finished.
Yeah.
Sekiro, I beat Sekiro, I immediately put it away. I'm like no.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
more of
but
that.
Sekiro isn't as replayable as any of the other from soft games.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I still agree with you too. Like obviously I play a lot of Dark Souls and replay it, but I think most of that it's just stemmed from the PvP element in Dark Souls 2.
For me, it's a little different, where the reason I replayed was because I was yearning for that experience again, but there was just nothing on the market.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. I mean, that makes it a bit replayable as well. But for me, like I would not have made probably would have made like at least 25 less characters in Dark Souls 2 if there wasn't PvP. So especially for someone like Julian who you play just for the single player, I definitely agree Dark Souls is not the most replayable game because there isn't like things you can do. Like obviously you can remake your builds and there's a lot of diversity in that, but if that's the only criteria, then like any RPG can qualify. And some definitely, even more impactful than Soulsborne. Because the thing with Souls, it's like, unless you're, in the right frame of mind, like going through all that struggle and suffering again is not as appealing as it can be with games where you don't have to age your heart to beat them.
Mm.
And I mean, the challenge of something like Dark Souls is they're mostly on the first run, because from there, you've learned so much already that none of the playthroughs that come after can compare to the first shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Yeah, what's most replayable? I mean, I don't know if I want this to, be my answer, because that's not really the case for me, but I don't play it that much. But obviously something like Minecraft is retardedly replayable.
Oh yeah, that's
Well, I
You
mean,
can't even make the argument that it's meant to be replayed because it does have like
it's
a
not meant to
progression.
be done. Like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't end. That's it.
it's
Yeah.
a sandbox. Like, a lot of games like City Skylines, like it's replayable because you can just like start a city fresh and follow a good old grid like New York, or follow a hub and spoke like Washington, or like you can test plenty of like urban planning methods to the madness of building a city in City Skylines. But ultimately, like, does that mean the game is replayable inherently from its design? Like, yeah, sure. Is it fun to replay? Not, definitely not for everybody. And I mean, I don't think we're gonna come up with an answer that's like, yeah, this is the ultimate staple of replayability. Like, there's plenty of games that are definitely meant to be played once that I've replayed over the years just because, like, I don't get tired of those good old stories. Like Final Fantasy VI, it offers, like, on paper, no replayability because none of the choices you make really matter. The game happens the way the game happens, and you're stuck with it. But it's still a pleasant story enough to say that I replayed through it multiple times just out of love for it.
Yeah.
Same would go like City Skylines. Same goes for Civilization. Like
Yeah.
Civ, all of them.
Crusader
Civ 4,
Kings.
5, 6.
Civ X,
I think,
whatever.
yeah. Crusader Kings as well. Those are games that's like there's some amount of random generation that creates like enough
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of need that if you want to be like a real like replayable thing. Is you need a bit of that random so that it is always a little different when someone comes in again. You know.
Get me some of that random
Or you just need to
jam.
have really insanely in-depth branching choice consequence trees and character designs and stuff. Like another game I'll put up there. I can't say for sure yet because it's still like playing it, but just from what I've seen, like Pathfinder looks like it has an insane amount of replayability. Just from different playing as a different class, just like from a pure gameplay perspective, but also from a roleplay perspective with all the alignment options and the like. You know, the more I play, there's just more and more decisions upon decisions that I'm like, man, I can't wait to do this as a lawful evil dude and see what happens. Now, of course, maybe when I do, it won't quite live up to the hype, but based off what I've seen and what I've heard is that there really can be a large difference. So yeah, and just games like that in general that have really depth-filled class systems. Like that's why, you know, another reason why I'd agree with not putting Skyrim is because, like you were saying, Louis, you can do everything in Skyrim in one playthrough. You can be the jack of all trades with little to no effort. But with the older games and just more traditional class-based RPGs, you know, which is also one of the reasons I, you know, prefer class-based to just like, you know, build yourself however you want, is because it breeds replayability. I love, you know, in games like CRPGs where it's like you come across a chest and like you're just never going to get that open because you're not the right class. And, you know, things like that really enhance replayability.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Like, what the most replayable Final Fantasy, if you discard the MMOs, would be Final Fantasy 1, and to a lesser extent, Final Fantasy 4, because you're in full control of how your party formulation is. You get to pick in the first one, you get to pick all 4 adventurers class. There isn't even a main character that you get strong-armed into being a warrior or whatever. You can do a full party of white mages and get your ass killed like more often than you can count. So yeah, I definitely agree with you that the old school class systems were definitely like, it had replayable written all over it.
Yeah, and even ones that aren't like as insanely in depth, like just take KOTOR, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, one good way to ensure you at least have 2 valuable playthroughs is like or even more depending on the game, but morality system, which kind of goes back to the choice and consequence. That, like, if your game has legitimate choice and consequence, then it's immediately replayable. And to what extent? Well, I guess depends how many choice and consequence options there are.
Well, if it's binary like Infamous, it's not really like it's like 2 playthroughs. And
I mean, it's still
that's
at
pretty
least
much it.
replayable to an extent. I wouldn't put it as the most replayable if it's just like good versus evil guides, but like if you have more nuance, then definitely, you know, like the CRPGs, Pathfinder, Pillars. Yeah, like it's just a matter of, you know, as long as you don't get bored of just the same story again, like those games are infinitely replayable, just from the combat perspective. Yeah. Did everyone answer?
I think so.
All right. Ready for the next question?
Wait.
Oh,
Did I answer?
did you?
Oh.
Actually, I'm not sure.
If you
I
don't
think I
know,
wanted-
I
how
don't
are
think
we
you did
supposed to
actually,
know?
so answer.
It's just
If you don't know,
okay.
then
Sorry.
definitely.
because I thought about it. I don't know if I actually said anything out loud. I just
You didn't project your thoughts hard enough. We didn't hear them,
It was
so
all
go
in your
ahead.
head.
Oh, okay.
Go
No, I
ahead.
wanted to say Binding of Isaac originally, but that's a roguelike, so I feel like that's not entirely fair.
It's
But...
it's a cop-out answer if it's an answer.
So I think that in that case, man, like games like Grand Theft Auto or action fighting, like the games where you have a character action games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, where you have like scores at the end of the level and you can like try and best it, and then when you beat the game under certain restrictions, you get upgrades and like that kind of stuff. I find highly replayable, or even Pokemon for that matter. But you know what? I don't even think I have a hard answer on this one. We could just keep going. I don't think I have an answer for what's.
All right.
I think like every game could potentially be replayable.
Yeah, I mean,
Except
at
for-
the end of the day, if you just love a game, even if it's just like I'm sure there are people out there that have played The Last of Us like 10 times,
Oh,
For sure.
which is a
It's
game
like
that
watching
is
a film,
fundamentally
right?
unreplayable by every metric. But just because you love it, you can keep playing it. You know, same for me. Like I've played Half-Life like a lot, at least a dozen times.
Quite a little bit, yes.
But there's no like divergent paths in that game. There's no real different ways to play. You're just kind of going through, the linear but well structured story. But I can play it again and again forever. But that's just because of how much I love it.
Yeah, the same way I've played Mega Man X more times than I can count, just because I just love that game.
Yeah.
Everything about it's just cool.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Yeah.
Okay. This one should involve maybe a bit less of philosophical thinking. What's your favorite game controller? I'll answer
PlayStation
first.
4.
For me, it's the 360.
More
The
than
360 was the peak of controller design.
Yeah.
More than Xbox One?
Hmm?
More than Xbox One?
Yeah,
I
honestly.
never had an
Really?
Xbox One.
Okay.
Couldn't tell
I
you.
have. Well, it's not like a true Xbox One. It's like it's designed like one, but it's like a third party with lights and stuff.
It's
But
a
I just-
Mad Catz controller.
I just felt like the
Oh.
360 controller just has the perfect
Whoa.
shape, at least for me. Not the Duke though. That thing was way too big, and I have big hands. Like.
I have pretty
Yeah.
large hand, and the Duke feels big in my hands also.
But yeah, the 360 to me is the pinnacle of controller design.
The N64 controller, obviously.
GameCube,
no.
original GameCube controller.
Right? Oh, wow.
I don't think I could put any Nintendo controllers. Not because I don't.
The
appreciate
Pro
what they try
controller
to
for
do.
Switch is pretty neat.
Okay,
I gotta give
That's
it that.
true. I
It's
can't argue
good.
with that.
Even Super Nintendo is pretty good. But
I
it's obviously
love
not.
I love the Super Nintendo controller, but as I've experienced better, more ergonomic controllers,
Yeah.
I have to admit that it wasn't an optimal design. It was a huge improvement over the NES controller, which was absolutely unusable. Like, if you look at a lot of high-level gameplay from a lot of old games like the NES Tetris or a lot of things like this, you'll see they're not holding their controllers the right way at all because it would be so uncomfortable.
Your hands would cramp up, yeah.
Oh man, it's just the size of it. Like, it's too small. It's got sharp edges. Like, it's everything you don't want in a controller. Like, whoever designed that controller doesn't have hands. Because it's the most uncomfortable thing to hold that I've ever held in my life, or just about.
Yeah, seems like that should disqualify you from designing controllers if you don't have hands.
But I'm hugely fond of PlayStation controllers in general. PS4 being the best iteration that I've got to try out.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it's the best PlayStation controller, but I've always found and it's definitely an improvement over the others, but I always found PlayStation controllers just a little too straight. They don't have
It's
the
the
curves for
symmetrical.
my
I know what
fingers.
you mean, and it's the symmetrical design.
Yeah, like I totally get and and all that, but for me, I still prefer the grooves of the 360 controller. But I haven't tried a PS5 controllers, but
No, me
was-
neither.
yeah,
So it's hard to
that's-
say.
That's my favorite one. I feel bad because it sounds like this is like a huge flex for me for saying, well, I have a PS5. And
oh,
the
look
DualSense
at you!
certainly-
You have
Well,
VR and
look
a
at
PS5.
you, man.
Hey, you can all go out and buy a DualSense controller and play it on your PC. It lets you do that.
Yeah,
But
PS4
there-
does too.
I mean, once it's
Exactly.
easier, I will get a PS5 eventually. So VR
But,
maybe a bit longer, but
Yeah, that's true. But I have a very specific reason for why I want to pick the DualSense. Like, it's not. It does a few things as a controller that I think are just like it's hard to I find perfect it more because I feel like once we hit the 360 controller, I think the 360 controller is probably the first controller that felt like really good.
Yeah,
it's like
it's like,
wow, like this
this
is like the
works.
standard.
yeah.
And then I feel like everything from there, I do prefer the Xbox One controller over the 360, but marginally because it's just a little heftier and I like the feeling in my hands, especially the triggers, which are a little bit wider.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I preferred the I preferred the Xbox One controller a little over the DualShock 4. The DualSense for me is like is perfection, just because it sort of blurs the line between the PlayStation and the Xbox controllers. It's a little bigger, it's a little heavier, and the joysticks are a little bit more like durable. They feel a little like more tough, and your finger sits in them a little better too. But for me, the thing that like fucking blows my mind is the adaptive triggers and the vibrations. But for me, one of the things that I don't know what this means, but it opens up possibilities like crazy. Was while I was testing my level, my Cadaver Slammer level in Unreal, I was curious and I plugged in the DualSense to see, I'm like, oh, will it just automatically adapt the mappings to my PlayStation controller? And it did. But more interestingly enough, was one of the only sound effects I have in the game is the gun firing. And then when you fire the gun, the DualSense turned the sound of the gun into a vibration. Like, not just it didn't just vibrate as I shot. It felt like it was the echo of the sound of the gunfire. This is really hard to explain unless you felt it, but it like turns the sound waves into vibrations, like the tempo of the sound, like the loudest points are the hardest vibrations. It just transforms it somehow. I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing. Like if you plug your DualSense into a PC and play any game with it, I don't know if they'll have a mode where you could just do that, but I certainly hope so, because goddamn, in terms of immersion, that feels really nice. It's just there needs to be limits, because I mean, if a character screams, is the controller just gonna start like vibrating to their voice or something? I don't know, but I think there's some really cool potential, and just the triggers feeling hard to squeeze when you're pulling a bow or trigger of a gun really adds a lot to immersion, on top of it just being a comfortable controller.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I remember reading about that when they announced the controller. I'm like, if that actually like is how it's advertised, that could be, you know, not a game
Super
changer,
cool.
but
Yeah.
like really a very nice feature.
Yep.
There's
a lot of
immersion. Potential. Yeah, there's tons of potential. The only thing I will say, there's two things that they do that the controller does that are really stupid and I hate. One, it's white, and like when you play a game on a controller, your hands sweat, you leave like residue on a controller, and it like constantly looks a little dirty, so you're always cleaning it. That and the buttons for start and share are kind of like hard to they're hard to place, especially the PlayStation button, the home button. It's so like indescript that it's like you have to look at the controller to really get used to pressing it. So I'm not a big fan of that, but yeah, I think that if you combine something like that with VR, like some of those feelings, like which I'm assuming they will, with the PlayStation VR 2, I think that there's potential for some amazing immersion there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Dan, did you give an answer?
I think I did, right? I was talking about. Hang on, what exactly was the question?
The controller?
Favorite controller.
Favorite controller, right? Yeah, right. I had kind of joked about the N64. No, I guess it's a toss-up between the 360 and the GameCube, to be honest, because they both. I mean, they're kind of similar in many ways, you know. I guess this. I guess the 360 controller just kind of squeaks ahead because it's what I'm still actively using for when I'm gaming on PC, and it just kind of felt right for my hand fit and everything. That being said, I haven't tried a lot of the more modern controllers, and just from what I'm hearing about this responsive trigger thing, like I'd very much like to try the PS5 controller at this point. But otherwise, the 360 is always, it's always been my go-to.
Cool.
I love my Elite controller, but I just never got used to the Xbox layout of having the joysticks be off-centered from each other or altered location.
Yeah.
I was very much a PlayStation boy when I was younger, so I got very used to the symmetrical grip.
Yeah, I can see that, but for me, it's the opposite. I was like, I prefer it like that because probably for the same reasons.
Yeah,
I
ultimately, like when it comes to especially the more modern controller, I think that it's very much a question of habit. Because I don't think that fundamentally one is superior in terms of design. Like it's a controller, they have roughly the same buttons, if not exactly the same amount of buttons.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's thrilled. Let's go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the host. Give us the
I just need to
question.
make when I can't see you, I need to I can't know if your silence
good
is just
point.
like
Yeah,
go
that's a
ahead
good
or
point.
like someone's not here.
It's like, yeah, my mic's not working. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is, for you mute yourself more often than you don't, so it's a legitimate concern.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. What's your favorite game in a genre you don't usually play?
Ooh. It's an interesting one.
Let's see. I mean, for me, I guess that would be either a shooter or a racing game, because I don't usually play a lot of shooters, and I definitely don't play racing games. I guess Mario Kart, my favorite racing game.
I mean, it works.
Right.
Fits the bill.
Mm-hmm. As for shooters, I mean, you can kind of call Fallout 4 a shooter more than you could call it an RPG, anyways.
Sure, but I don't think you can use Fallout 4 as your answer in this
No, I don't
case.
think so. No, that's fair.
Doesn't really fit the bill, but I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But no, I get it. I get it. Okay.
I think I can give a pretty straight answer that's gonna go to the point where both in terms of setting and gameplay, for me it would be Mass Effect. I'm not huge on sci-fi, I'm definitely not a shooter fan, but the idea that a sci-fi shooter reeled me in as hard as Mass Effect did is like most unexpected, to say the least.
For sure, that is a good one.
Yep. I can't argue with that.
Nope.
Well, for me, the one, I guess, a genre I don't really play a lot is like strategy games, but I do play a lot of, or at times play a lot of Crusader Kings.
Mm.
But like, I don't play Civ. I don't play. I don't even know what the others are called. That's how little I play them.
Age of Empires.
I did play that like when I was younger, like as a kid. That would be my go-to. Age of Mythology. That's
Oh, I loved Age of Mythology.
Oh, yeah, that was the shoot.
But these days, and I guess partly because the genre is dead, I don't really play, certainly not real-time strategy games. But even regular strategy games, aside from Crusader Kings. So yeah, because I play plenty of shooters, plenty of RPGs, plenty of, my spectrum's pretty broad normally. So there's my answer.
Okay.
Like I could pick Super Smash because I don't play fighters that much, and Super Smash Brothers is like such a good classic. But I'm so reeled into Forza Horizon right now that I feel like I have to pick Forza Horizon because this is such madness.
Fair.
I'm confused the whole time I'm playing. I'm like, why am I playing this and why am I liking this? This doesn't make any sense. it's like I buy Madden or something, which is like the least characteristic thing for me to do, being like, "Whoa, Madden's fun. I hate football, but man, is Madden fun."
Yeah,
like
right.
wouldn't make any sense, but so
Yeah.
I'll give it to Forza Horizon 4 for now.
No, that's good. Good answer. Who hasn't answered?
Did Dan answer?
Yeah, I mean, like I gave.
Oh, yeah, you did, yeah, Mario Kart.
technically.
I felt like it was a cop out, which is why I'm.
I mean,
asking,
it
definitely
It
is,
is. I'm trying to think of like, because I guess I don't really go too far out of my comfort zone. Like I kind of enjoy a very wide variety of games. So to think of something that I don't enjoy, because like, I mean, an easy answer I guess would be Rocket League, but I hate Rocket League, so I can't even say I enjoy it. Why you do these things to me, Jacob?
Hey, this has been all Julian so far. These are all
Damn
his
it, Julian!
questions.
How dare you make me
I
use
knew
my
they'd be
brain?
good questions, but I came here unprepared.
So did I, and I made the questions.
You are not prepared.
Yeah, basically. Okay, you know what? If anyone else has one, go for it. I'm just gonna take a quick look at my Steam library to see if there's anything I was playing. I guess Doki Doki Literature Club.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
usually
What
play
genre
many,
is that?
many.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right.
You can,
Any
you can
dating
have that answer
sims
if you can
or,
tell me
like-
what genre that falls under.
It's no.
Yandere.
It's well, yeah, kind of yandere, but it's more like not quite a graphic novel, but an interactive.
Interactive novel for sure.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is kind of
basically.
ironic given the whole premise of Doki Doki
Yeah,
Literature Club.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's pretty nice. But stuff like that, Danganronpa, like it's not really something that I'll find myself into often. But when I'm there, I do find myself enjoying it quite a bit.
You
Oh,
can tell us
yeah.
about the porn game you play. It's okay.
Jacob,
Okay, well,
I
if
just
we're
put
gonna
porn
go
in Skyrim,
there,
like,
then
come
I
on.
have a list for you guys.
Oh boy,
Right.
well, I don't know if that counts in this answer. If you have a list, I think you usually play porn games then.
Yeah.
All right. Did you answer, Louis?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Cool.
Mass Effect.
Right. Yes. I remember now. So next question. This is the last of the Julian questions, but then I got a few leftovers from last week. We can go as well.
We can reheat them in the microwave, no issue.
Yeah, and one of them actually
Basically.
actually tags along with Julian's last one a bit. So I'm going to turn it into a two-parter. So the first part is, what is your least favorite gaming trend? And on the flip side, what is your favorite gaming trend?
Oh, I got it.
Go for
Okay.
it.
Shoot.
Favorite gaming trend is emphasis on single player, story driven cinematic games. God of War, Horizon, Days Gone, even like
Ghost
the
of
PlayStation
Tsushima,
exclusives, Ghost of Tsushima,
Red
even Last
Dead.
of Us. I'm not gonna start with you. I'm just saying it's a cinematic game.
No, it's
That's-
in the
that's-
category. I'll say it's trash, but
I'm
it's
not
in the
gonna
category.
start with you.
but it's cinematic. We'll leave it there. So I like that as a trend, like that Sony has made a trend of like that's just what they make as exclusives. Love that. Least favorite trend I would say is anything about like releasing slightly unfinished games while also peddling tons of microtransactions or additional content. Like, the game isn't even finished. You're like, oh, this game came out kind of half baked. You're like, don't worry, you could buy a bunch of other shit that won't fix it.
You can buy
but
the
it's-
bug fix.
Yeah.
Like that's even if they let you buy the bug fix, but sometimes the bug fix it doesn't even fix it. It's just like, oh, don't worry, I'll sink money into the current in-game currency, but that's still not even gonna fix the game. It just makes me better. Like my character is stronger, but the game's still broken. It just feels so backwards. That drives me nuts, and that's a trend with like a lot of big budget games that I'm not a huge fan of personally. That's pretty universal. I'm sure nobody's a fan of that.
Yeah. No, it's good. Good answers. Well, for me, I like I said, I definitely agree with your enjoyed trend, and it's why I've very happy with PlayStation 4, and much like you, those types of games are right up my alley as well. And I guess just in general to kind of expand on that, just because there was a time when people were saying like single player games just in general are a dying breed, blah 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 blah. But now we're at the point where EA's at the point where they're axing the multiplayer component to Dragon Age 4. And that is a trend I would love to see, for single player games to, be single player games and not have their funds diverted to things they don't need. Like, sure, I know, like, okay, different studios, but at the end of the day, there was money spent on a group of people to make Mass Effect multiplayer that could have been spent on, keeping your writers in the writing room, maybe. That, like, I would sacrifice that multiplayer on an altar in a second to get even just a marginally better ending to Mass Effect 3. And
there's a lot of things you probably sacrifice on an altar for that.
Yeah, definitely. Including some people in this podcast right now.
In this very podcast.
I'm looking at you, Dan.
Yeah.
I know.
But yeah, I very much like the trend that we're putting more emphasis on single player experiences again. Especially with Sony, but even beyond Sony, it's being done more and more now. As people realize there's still very much a market for it, as you see by how successful, despite its flaws, The Last of Us was, and how successful things like not just like God of War, which obviously has a huge following, but how successful something like Ghost of Tsushima, a brand new IP from still a known studio, but still like a completely new project that's, at least at launch, was completely single player and then had multiplayer added on afterwards. Like that I love to see. On the flip side, my least favorite gaming trend goes back to a bit of the discussions we've had, and that's the oversimplification and dumbing down of role-playing games in particular. Can't really say about all games because a lot of games just don't even bother with that kind of stuff, which is fine. Like, if anything, shooters doing great. Give me more Doom. That's a trend I'd like to see continue. Just give me more Doom.
More Doom.
Just Doom.
Doom is a trend. Give me Doom.
Make Doom truly eternal, please. But yeah, I really don't like I'm all for that. Great, giving me this single player RPG, but it's like not really an RPG anymore. So I don't like that, which is why I've gravitated so much towards CRPGs over the last 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I love the focus on single player. I hate the dumbing down and the making things appeal to the common denominator. We need more games that don't give a shit about your feelings.
Yeah, there's some of those.
Yeah, there are definitely some, and I love them for it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love the Soulsborne series. But it's not even so much like I don't want hand holding. Like I can live with a very touchy feely tutorial at the start of the game, but still make it so that there are other tutorials I have to uncover because there's mechanics that are hidden within the layers of this game, or make it just so that the entire game isn't what the tutorial is. Like.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, and I'll even go back on something I said kind of about Breath of the Wild being infinitely replayable. I would have really liked because obviously, as you know, you finish the plateau, you have every tool that you're going to get in that game.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen a slower kind of drip feed of that, and
basically how it was back in Zelda. Like at every point of Zelda, it used to be like this.
Yeah, it's although instead of having the hook shot only help you for that dungeon and a couple little places here and there, suddenly it allows you to explore this world of Hyrule in a totally different way. And I feel like that might be one of the things that they're going to try to do with the new Zelda, is that they've realized that by maybe giving the players the entire kit to play around in the sandbox, because that's ultimately what it was, right? It was a sandbox more than anything else. They've kind of taken away that feeling of progression. So I'd like to see that kind of returned. That would be neat.
I'll be back in a second. I just need to pee.
Good.
Continue.
Well, I guess.
Full
Again,
gaming trends, right? Yeah.
I'm going to take this as an opportunity to go pee myself.
There you go. Take a quick 2-minute break. All right, now that he's gone, let's just talk a whole lot of shit about Jacob. Just all the shit in the world.
I guess we don't have much shit to say on Jacob.
I guess not, eh? Damn. Well, I guess he has been doing pretty good lately. Alright, well. You're safe this time, Jacob. But next time, we'll fucking get you.
Yeah, we'll be waiting in the shadows,
When you're
ready to strike.
Yes. Ah, my weed's almost here. What time is it right now? 4:40? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, welcome back.
Hello. Gross.
Thought you said you were going to pee. That's not peeing.
You're right. I had to come back to my room for the pooping. I brought my poop toilet in here.
Oh, okay. You have a specific toilet for pooping?
Yep. Regular
Goodness
toilets
you.
just can't handle it.
Look at Mr. Moneybags over here.
Yep. It's not really a second toilet. It's just a hole straight into the sewer pipe.
Oh my god. That's fucking awful, Jacob.
It is.
I don't know who you convinced to install that in your place, but
He didn't. He just.
Because
wrecked
aren't you on the
fucking
top
floor
floor
and-
too?
Yep.
So it just goes through like a clear tube and
Yeah.
like,
There's
through
a
the people's
biohazard
apartment.
cone in all the other apartments under me as my poop flies down through it. It's
There's like an alarm
I
and
clearly
shit.
missed
Like,
something important here.
welcome back.
Yeah, we just got into a discussion about a poop toilet and a pee toilet, and it turned into a thing.
Yeah, Jacob's got specific toilets for each.
Yeah, I can't poop in a
You have
normal
more
toilet.
than one toilet?
No.
I mean, of course.
But
I
yeah.
know people who
You
do.
haven't.
Yeah.
You haven't explained Jacob's poops. Or sorry, experienced.
I don't
Jacob's
actually,
poops.
but I do believe that some people actually do live that life.
It's magic.
Poops
I
are
can't
just
imagine
lucky.
having multiple bathrooms for different purposes. Like, I wash my face in this bathroom, and I pee in that bathroom, and I
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, must be nice to have that kind of money.
luxury.
All right, so we're all back.
Yes.
Yes.
Did everyone answer the trend question?
No,
No.
No,
I don't think Dan did, and
no,
I.
that one's still pretty fresh. Trends that I like and trends that I don't like.
I mean, in my case, we've touched on a lot of them.
That's it, yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them just kind of shoehorning multiplayer into games that don't need it. But I also have seen, cases where it was done right. I mean, we'll say what we will about Mass Effect 3 being a piece of shit game. The multiplayer was amazing, and it certainly gave me many hours of enjoyment. As for trends that I like, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as trends go, I can't say I'm the biggest fan. Because yeah, a lot of what Louis said, like they do tend to be moving away from single player games for whatever reason. And I feel like that's kind of shitty, like trends. I don't like DLC. I think DLC is poopy. I miss being able to buy a full game in one lovely price. as opposed to buying only parts of it and like having them pre-sell you season passes and all kinds of crap like that.
Expansion
whoa, no.
packs were not too bad. I find.
No,
Like,
expansion packs
no,
were great
no.
because they didn't feel like the missing part of the game. They felt like a genuine expansion of the game.
Exactly. Whereas DLC and like especially like, you know, teensy tiny minutia DLC like cosmetics and all that kind of crap. Remember back in the day when unlockable costumes used to be exactly that, unlockable, and not just with your parents' credit card?
in-game currency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or even just like, hey, beat this game or do this specific series of unique achievements or events, and then you unlock the Hayabusa set for Halo 3 or whatever it happens to be, you know? Like just giving players something because they played the game, not because they paid the game. That's something I'd like to see more of in the future.
Are you playing Wind Waker?
No, just Breath of the Wild.
Okay, sorry. The sound effects.
Sorry,
I
are the
think
sounds
it's the
popping
same
through?
one.
I could
I
turn
just,
it
I
down.
just
Sometimes
heard
we
like
hear
the
you.
sound of finding an item, which is I think the same in Wind Waker.
Yeah.
The
yeah,
same in
exactly.
all of Zelda, really.
Oh, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Da-na-na-na. It doesn't get more classic than this. Okay, I guess I can tackle the issue. A trend I dislike in gaming is season pass material, where it's like the game releases what feels like it's like a skeleton of what's gonna be the actual game, and then you gotta wait until all the DLCs are out to feel like you're getting the whole thing. Like I've played older games that had expansion pack released, and I loved getting excited about, oh my god, they're releasing Lords of what was it? Lord of Destruction for Diablo 2. And they're adding 2 new classes and a whole new area, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, nice. Because, you know, the game was done before, but there's more now. But now it's like, you can buy a game that's not even released yet, and a season pass, because you know that there's gonna be more money to be put on the game if you want to experience it all. Like, it's not a, maybe there's gonna be DLC, maybe not. It's really just when.
And then how
And
much, pretty
it
much.
takes all the hype behind it, like, away, because it's like, I don't need to be hype, I know it's coming. And then by the time it's coming, it's just like, I knew this was coming, I was just waiting to see when, so that I can save up the other $50 I'm gonna need to buy your DLC and all the cosmetic crap that comes with it. Now, I'm not usually the kind to just go out of my way to get cosmetic upgrades, but at the same time, it's like, the reason these updates and these upgrades are there, it's because people have been willing to put money down to keep getting them, and I feel like it's gotten completely out of hand. Like, completely out of hand. If you play a game like Valhalla, you get, what, 5 or 6 armor sets in the base game? The rest is all bought with either store credit or, like, the purchasable in-game currency, like the what is it? They're like jade pearls or whatever.
Helix, the Helix credits.
Yeah.
Well, that's like their shop, but they also have an opal system.
Oh,
Yeah.
the opals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
Which you
the
could get
opals.
some of in game, which was nice.
You get
but it was
some in
really
game,
few and far
but the
between.
bulk you get, you have to get through microtransacting. If that's a word. But and it just, this whole debacle is really just, how can we get gamers that already, like, gaming is already as an industry the biggest grossing entertainment industry, grossing more money than like movies, television, and music put together. So I really don't feel like the industry as a whole is justified to be asking for more money. I mean, if people are willing to put the money down, good for the companies that are getting the gamers to put the money down. Like, take a company like Riot Games, where it's like, the base game is free. You can basically get all the heroes for free if you play enough. The only thing you can do with money is cosmetic. And yeah, some people will argue that some of the skins give you an advantage because this, that. But ultimately, a completely free game manages to be one of the biggest grossing games just off of how much people are interested in buying those side little things. But they're never necessary little things. I feel like if I'm playing like Borderlands 3, for example, like, yeah, you get a good base game for the price you paid, But to get really the whole experience of what they had intended, even at launch, you'll need the DLCs. You'll want most of the cosmetics, even though they add very little to the game. And then they'll charge you like $150 for a game that's not even launched, just because Season Pass is coming and you know there's going to be DLC and you know there's going to be stuff you want to pick up. Now, as for a trend I like in video games, man, what do I like in video? I like this trend towards roguelikes. I'm a huge roguelike fan, so I like this trend towards roguelikes. There's a ton of those, like a metric shit ton of those. Some are better than others for sure. Some are little diamonds in the rough, like Loop Hero. But I'm there for it. Like Hades reminded me of why I love roguelikes, and it showed me that these kinds of games have huge potential. And I can't wait to see more of what happens with that part of the community and the industry.
Yeah, good answers.
Thank you.
Was that everybody? I think so, right?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think so.
So, the next question. All right, here's maybe a thumper for some of you. What is your favorite atmosphere in a video game? Which game has your favorite, atmosphere?
Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. It's such it's kind of Tim Burton-esque, to be honest. Things are like very much the uncanny valley, especially after coming from Ocarina of Time, and now you're seeing a lot of these same characters, but in vastly different positions and like lifestyles. Like one of the bosses from Ocarina of Time, like Twin Rova. Is that the one
Yeah,
with two
the
witches?
two witches. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rova. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fuck, they're both separate characters, and they run like a swamp
run a
photography
potion
thing.
shop, yeah.
Yeah, like it's crazy. And yeah, it's just everything is so dark, and it's actually kind of crazy to look at Majora's Mask, especially in our current time. But with COVID and whatnot, where like we have some mask deniers and some vaccine deniers and whatnot, and you see the exact same thing in Majora's Mask. There's the moon literally crashing into the planet, slowly
And
getting
the
bigger and bigger.
entirety of Clock Town's in denial.
Yeah, well, half of them, because you see the guards. Like, if there's a certain point you can go in, and it's a bit of a throwaway area that only really matters, like at the end when you have, I think, the moon couple's mask. But like, you enter the mayor's office where there's the soldiers who are fighting to say like, shit's happening. We got to get people out of here. We got to start evacuating. And then there's the I guess we'll call them the capitalists, but the carpenters who are like, you just want to make sure no one gets to see our brand new creation. Like, it's gonna be a great festival. Don't ruin the festival. Basically, just like totally denying that. And like, you feel that atmosphere everywhere in the game, not just in Clock Town, but you go to some of the other four areas which are like being heavily affected.
Each of these
by...
areas have their own emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And you feel that emotion expressed so thoroughly in each zone. They nailed atmosphere. That game is
Well, I'm sure
entirely
you've heard about that whole theory that Majora's Mask was built using an old model for how we cope with grief, where Clock Town is it's the Dabdo model, where Clock Town is denial, the forest is anger, then you get to the Gorons and the Gorons try to negotiate with you, and then you get to the Zoras and it's just grief, and then you get to the Inca Valley and its acceptance. They're all dead and they're all happy to be dead.
Yeah, exactly. The peace of death and everything. Like it's so beautifully done. And I think they've gone on record saying that the whole Link is dead theory isn't true. I mean that lives in my head, canon, for free.
Yeah, the same way they went to say that the Zelda timeline is true, and I'm still a denier.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's a good answer. I like your answer.
Yeah.
It's a pretty safe answer. I mean, I'm Jacob's the Witcher guy, I'm the Zelda guy.
And I mean, I think I'm gonna write off of your answer, but give a bit of a nuanced answer where I'm gonna go for my favorite setting, I guess you called it, would be cosmic horror.
Ooh,
I like the idea of the unknowable being at play, and Majora's Mask is kind of that, because you have the Mask of Majora, which is this unknown quantity of power that's just it's get right about ready to destroy the world. I don't know what you're gonna do to stop it, but you better do something because otherwise the moon's gonna come crashing down. But even beyond that, like Loop Hero plays hugely into the whole cosmic horror.
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne plays insanely into it. I'm glad you brought it up because I was about to forget.
Really? I thought
Can't
this was
believe you
leading
were.
up to
I
it.
was thinking it too.
I
was like,
thought so
just
too,
waiting
and
for
I
it.
was like, I'm forgetting something massive here. Like, what's going on? But yeah, Bloodborne, like again, a huge title in the genre. Like, there's something, and I mean, the people who've played D&D with me can attest. Like, my first pick when I had to play a warlock was Great Old One, because there's something. I like this whole Call of Cthulhu level horror where it's like it's not so much about the gore. It's not about the man running at you with a chainsaw. It's about you not being able to trust your own mind. Like what's happening is really what's happening, and like trying to discern what's real. What even mean? What does real even mean? Like, oh man, I love those philosophical. And I guess that's why I love the genre, because it's so easy to fall into this whole like existential dilemma of philosophy that it's just like, what does it mean to be real? And what is it to know? Are there things that are unknowable? Is there such a thing? What is a god? Like, it's intense, and it brings forth interesting questions for me. I guess that's something that I've grown more and more fond of as I play games, where it's just like I can dig a game for a good old story, nice, simple, to the point. But if I'm not coming out of there asking myself certain questions, then what did I do? Did I really do anything meaningful? So yeah, I guess that would be it. Cosmic horror.
All right. Good answer.
Jacob, you got one?
Yes.
High fantasy.
Right.
No. Not in this case. I'm going to give a specific example once I finish bludgeoning this cliff racer to death. Just give me a second. I just keep missing because early levels of Morrowind. The dice rolls are not in my favor.
Oh yeah.
Barely.
The first few hundred swings with a weapon is definitely a pain.
Yeah. And I only finally just got a weapon that I'm actually like good with. Before I was using something that I had like no skill in. And it's like I'm not going to live. Oh god, now I'm gonna die for sure. There's too many cliff racers. I'm just exploring without health potions, so that's just recipe.
Dangerous. Yeah, you're setting yourself up for murder.
Come on. Hey, my blunt weapons went up. Woohoo. Oh god. No, he's so close to dead. Ah, I'm dead. Okay. I think my first answer released when I think of atmosphere in games. I think the game with the literal thickest, most, I don't know, flavorful atmosphere that I've experienced is the first Witcher. Just the low medieval dark fantasy vibe. The music is just insanely good throughout the entire game, and it just creates this almost oppressive medieval feel, but it's like, even though it's a fantasy, it just feels true to what living in a place like that would probably feel and sound like if you had a band going around with you. But yeah, I think Witcher 1 has one of the best established atmospheres in any game I've ever played, including the other Witcher games.
I'll half agree with you here, because I will admit, 100%, the first Witcher game, very thick with atmosphere. That being said, not the atmosphere that I really find myself enjoying. I almost found that its muted tones were too muted. Like, there wasn't enough about the game that was there to like really pull me in. Like, I'm a big guy into the fantasy world genre, you know? Like, I love that shit. But with The Witcher, I don't know. I just felt like it didn't do anything that kind of like changed the way I viewed things. It just was kind of just depressing.
Sure, but you played it for what, an hour?
No, like probably a good combined like 12 hours from the 4 times that I tried to replay it.
Alright, well, the
Like,
game's not
I
going to
gave
give you
it
the
a
stuff
shot,
you want
right?
from that early on, though. it is a game that doesn't immediately grip you, but once you're in for life.
I mean, clearly, right?
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this for a while because I'm a big fan of horror, and horror games tend to have very thick atmospheres. But if I have to pick one horror game, and again, this could be some nostalgia playing here, so I would have to replay the game to be 100% sure, but I want to pick Silent Hill 2. I played the apparently worst remake. I didn't play the original, so even though I played that version, which is seen to be worse, I found that it was like Silent Hill in general, just in every game, is like very oppressive in a way that I absolutely love, because you play horror games and there's kind of like there's usually like a kind of sense of like you're in danger, but there's some kind of you have some kind of edge. You can put your back against the wall and kind of fight your way out, like Resident Evil or Dead Space. And you get far enough, you're in danger. You're in a very oppressive atmosphere, and I love the way that those games do it. But you kind of stand a chance. You're almost like an action hero caught in way over their head. That's like the feeling you get. But in Silent Hill, it's like you're just some person. You're just some person who's like trapped in like hell, in literal hell, and you're like desperately trying to escape, and you don't know what. And you run into things. You're like, I don't know what that is. And it starts moving, and you don't even know what it's... Kind of like Dark Souls, when you see something moving, you're like, I don't know what its patterns are going to be. I don't know how this thing's going to attack me. The music, the buildings themselves feel like they're opposing you. Everything's oppressive. It's like you feel uncomfortable and dirty when you're anywhere in that game. And when you run into other characters, like, there's no support. Like, every character is weird and detached. Kind of like in Demon Souls, or even in Dark Souls, it's like people are kind of losing their minds in those games. But in Silent Hill, it's like they seem to be kind of coherent in what they're saying. It just sounds like they're in a different place than you are. So when they're discussing, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is like one guy's talking about eating pizza." You're like, "How could you eat pizza? There's like." Have you seen where we are? We're in like hell. He's like, I'm really hungry,
Yeah.
So, it's like, how are you focused on that? Or there's just so much going on. The character is like, Louis was talking about like cosmic horror and losing your mind, but I feel like Silent Hill is also a good example of like a character's sanity being pushed to its limits. The enemies are trying to kill you. The world is scary. Everything's going wrong. It's like everything's going wrong, and it feels like everything's collapsing around you. And the atmosphere, the colors, the music, it's all so, like, morose. I really like the way Silent Hill... It's, like, very unique in the world of horror for delivering something quite like that, I find. Although Persona 5 is also nice. But that's a happier atmosphere. That's, like, pretty and, like, aesthetically pleasing. Whereas Silent Hill is, like, depressing and scary, so...
Yeah.
Depends which side of the spectrum you want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah, I can pick a happy one, too. Pillars of Eternity is like a comfy winter fire. It's great.
Yeah, the world isn't completely blasted apart or on the verge of destruction like in Majora's Mask or in Silent Hill, so it's like...
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to feel depressed when you're...
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be in a place that's like... There's always a problem in a game. Almost always there's some sort of plot, or like there's an issue that the hero has to deal with. But, like, some games, it's like... It feels like an unwinnable battle. Some games, even Dark Souls, it's like you're like, am I really making a difference sometimes? And then sometimes you do, and that's what gives you a good feeling. But then there's games where, like, even like Dragon Age, where there's a big threat, but you're like, but I'll be damned if I'm not gonna fight it. We could do this together. Like, that's like the kind of feeling you get from a lot of fantasy games, even Pillars, where you're like, you're a gifted person who has the power to do something that everyone else does, and we band together, we can do anything, kind of thing.
The power of friendship. Bill John. Yeah.
All right.
It's one of my favorite topics, by the way, is atmosphere in games. I could talk all day about that.
Yeah. Same. We could have a freaking entire podcast about it if we really wanted to.
Okay, maybe we will.
Oh god, I'm gonna die again. Okay. Alright, next question, right? Everyone answered?
Yep.
Okay. Here's a fun one. What is your favorite weapon or ability in a game?
Oh my god. Oh God.
That's a toughie. That is a tough one.
I really have to go through my entire mental library now of every
I
weapon
know.
I've used in a game. Okay. I'm gonna have to get down. I'm definitely gonna have to get more than one on this one, but I'll need a minute.
Let's see. I mean, one of my favorites I can think of right off the bat wasn't necessarily because it was like super powerful or mega elite or what have you, but more because of like the trials it took to actually get it, and that would be the hand cannon in Resident Evil 4, which you get from beating mercenaries on like expert with all the people. So
Good job, my man. I have never done that.
I hated myself by the time it was done, but it was back in the day because my biggest experience was that with obviously was on the GameCube. Like I played that first, and I remember going through it over and over. I got the Chicago typewriter, the Infinite Rocket Launcher, which is also very satisfying because I mean, come on. But the hand cannon, even though it wasn't quite as amazing as the rest, it just felt good to use. Like I earned every fucking time that I absolutely obliterated a chainsaw guy's face with like one good shot of this maxed out hand cannon, you know?
Magnums in Resident Evil feel fucking amazing.
Oh,
You get that burst of power all of a sudden, like you're so weak and you're like, haha! I'm gonna blow
all of a
away
sudden, now who's the bitch?
Yeah,
You know,
Infinite Rocket Launcher kind of speaks to that a little bit. You're like, fuck
just
everybody.
a touch. Oh god. I mean, I'd like to say the fucking Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, but that's not at all the case. They really made it poopy. Even with the DLC they added, where you can like beat Master Trial to make it slightly stronger. Like that's it. It's like slightly stronger, but it still gets destroyed. So, you know, it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah. Oh no. This door.
This one, I mean, this might even be one of Jacob's answers. I'm not quite sure yet, but the gravity gun, right?
Oh yeah,
In Half-Life
that would be one
2?
of mine.
Like, come on, physics-based fucking beauty.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. Because it's brilliant and perfect and just super fun to play. And then at the end, it's like, oh yeah, you know this thing you've had that can do objects? Well, now you can do people with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the gravity gun is the single best weapon in any shooter I've played.
I have some obscure ones, I think.
Can I do a bit of a cop-out answer and just say everything in Doom Eternal?
That's fair.
That's a good. I mean, I agree.
It earned it, right?
I'm not gonna fault you for it
Like
because
just the
they're
entire
really
system.
good.
It's just when you're in that flow, when you're just bouncing around doing abilities, blowing people off with the shotgun, and the music's playing, and you're tearing. Or if you want to be specific, I'll say tearing limbs apart. The glory kills.
Oh, glory kills. Oh,
It's just
one of the best things ever.
It's like, oh, you have a head on top of a neck. Well, now you have a head in your shoulders. So
Yeah.
have fun with that.
We just move that around for you there, buddy.
Or like freaking launching grenades into the mouths of the fuck, I can't remember what they're called. The big balls that float around.
Oh, the Kaiko Demon?
Yeah, that's it. You know, just fucking dropping grenades in their mouths, or it's just it's a rush.
I agree completely. Just glory kills, and also the fact that they implemented like it's a mechanic to get yourself more health and ammo.
Yeah, it's not just for the
But ammo's
for the walls.
chainsaw. That's just health.
Yeah.
So glory kills give you health. Yeah.
Yeah, glory kills health. Chainsaw was what, ammo or
and flame belches
armor. Yeah.
Great mechanic. Honestly, brilliant. Like I applaud the shit out of them for something so simple and rewarding. My God, is it ever good?
Just with all the right pieces put together and just when it hits, it hits.
The gent playing the Mick Gordon soundtrack, and you're like, bow, 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 and you're like rearranging everyone's anatomy to that music. It's satisfying.
Yeah, it's like, oh, me tearing out all your ribs can substitute for a guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knew a chainsaw could be an instrument?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. I know Slipknot. I know that what can be an instrument is way different from what actually is an instrument.
Yeah, it's such a good game.
I have a good few though for you guys. A few random.
I'm
ones.
just holding off on mine because I feel like they're very obvious, so I'm gonna wait.
Is it going to be like some of the? Oh, I don't want to say it because I want to let you have it, but I have a feeling I know what some of yours are going to be. But I have a few. I want to say like in the Force Unleashed, I really like the way the Force feels, like grabbing and moving things around, or Force pushing people feels like really fun to see them ragdoll and blast through walls. It wasn't the best game in the world, but man, did the Force just like feels good to be really OP and throw people around like ragdolls. You're like, oh, I am all powerful, and
Yeah.
the sound effect it makes when you charge a Force push and just blast someone with it. Oh. Good feeling, and it's like one of my top powers I wish I had in real life. Not that I would kill people or anything, but hey,
Yeah.
I'm not
cool
saying
power.
I would, but
cool
I mean,
power.
just
They made a
don't
movie
push
about
me.
it.
Yeah.
They made a movie Push.
There you go.
People are like, that is cool power. We'll make a whole movie about it. That I have my most obscure one I could pick is the cross from Dante's Inferno.
yeah.
Just the feeling of blasting people with it's like almost like Force Push. But the sound effect and the kind of it slows down time when you land a final hit in the combo, and just like the juiciness of that final blam when you it's like a shotgun blast. It feels very satisfying. Love that. But I think my mainstream pick is a very recent and popular one, and that would be the Leviathan axe in the new God of War, which feels
Ooh.
fucking pretty when you throw it
That's
into
a
someone
good
and pull
one.
it back out. Juicy.
Juicy.
Cannot argue with that. Definitely is juicy.
Gnarly,
Dripping in the bloods
dude.
of your enemies. So
Another one before I forget. For those who played Devil May Cry 3, Nevon, the guitar, which is actually a lightning witch who just transformed herself into a guitar.
Okay.
Pretty neat.
So
It just-
the only one I didn't play, and I'm just like, what?
Oh, you didn't play DMC? Oh,
All
wow.
of them.
Okay.
I played all of them but 3.
Oh man, that's the one you need to play. That's the best one, like hands down.
Oh damn.
Yeah. Okay.
have
All
to.
right. But it's good. It's neat. You get a lot of cool stuff in that game.
I believe it. I love character action games have fantastic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
it's true.
Alright.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I just want to say one last thing, real
Yeah,
quick.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Just to jump off of, actually, Jacob was talking about Doom, and I want to say like if you were gonna say Doom, I think the shotguns in Doom are like more specifically the thing that feels like
The
the
super shotgun.
punchiest.
Oh, the super
Yeah.
shotgun is just like jizz in my pants. Like it's
That's
so
the
good.
one of the best feeling weapons I can even think of. The noise and like the power is great. Anyways, that's all I wanted to add, and I'm ready to hear your mysterious answer, Louis.
What's
Yes.
my oh so surprising, not so surprising answer?
Maybe.
So for me, I guess favorite weapon. I'm debating between two. One because it's really cool. The other one because it's like a cooler version of it. But the threaded cane from Bloodborne and its
Nice.
big brother, the Beast Cutter from the DLC, are just two amazing weapons. But the entire weapon set of Bloodborne, it's just the trick weapons in general are so interesting to me. The idea that you can on the fly mid combo switch from a light weapon to a heavy weapon and have it combo perfectly into itself, in and out of itself. It's just so satisfying to use when you start learning some of the combos and some of the jukes for when you're doing PvP. And as for one of my favorite skill, I've touched on the subject before that my go-to thing for RPGs is usually casters,
Yeah.
but I'm specifically fond of conjuration magic. Being able to summon all sorts of weapons and armors and servants and zombies and undead, and like I'm just looking at my list from Oblivion now and it's like all summon stuff. And it's just there's a power to it. Like, yeah, sure, shooting lightning bolts out of your hands is pretty cool, but did you ever rip a being from the plane of lightning out of its existence and summon it to yours? Like, you should try, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much my unsurprising answer. Now, if I have to dig a little deeper and find something a little more niche, I think Dante's Inferno had some insane weapons and abilities. It felt so good. Like, a lot of people accused it of being kind of a God of War ripoff, and in many ways it kind of is. But it did so well at it that I think it's unfair to stop at calling it that. both in terms of its setting and of its like play style and its tools. I had a nice place in my heart for Bayonetta's like feet guns.
Yeah.
Like it was cool because it
Nice
allowed
place in
for
your
this
heart, eh?
interesting thing. It added this interesting thing to a game that's already very combo heavy. It was kind of a way to take a bit of a breather and reposition without losing your combo, because you could just like keep shooting at stuff while you repositioned and like try to start your next combo, because that game was very heavy on like using combos is nice, but you gotta vary them, because if you're always using the same combos, then they stop netting you as many points. So you got to be careful how you use your kit, and I thought that was pretty neat. The Master Sword, for how emblematic it is a cool weapon, but I don't think it does really anything interesting. Like, they took away one of the interesting things it did when they got to 3D, and they realized that the Master Sword throwing stuff when you're at full HP might be a little overpowered. Like, if you've played A Link to the Past and you have full life and you have the Master Sword or any of the ones that come after, there's just this little beam attack that launches from it. Even in the classic Zelda, like, if you're at full HP, like, you're throwing these little magic swords forward.
Yeah, and they kind of
I
had that a
love...
bit for a while.
I gotta give a huge shout out to Mega Man X6 Shadow Armor, because it was just such a cool, like, different play style altogether. Because all of a sudden, like, you could cling to ceilings and shoot down. Your ult was just like these blades that spin around you, and it made the last boss real easy to cheese. Yeah, I think I circled around some neat stuff. I don't think I have anything that I'm seriously missing out. I mean, I'm gonna give a shout out to my favorite weapon from the Dark Souls series, and Ornstein's spear is just my favorite. I just love it. It's just so cool. Like, the whole like impale people in it and then pick them up and then just slam them down was just so hardcore. It was so
Thanks
edgy.
for
I loved
triggering
it.
my PTSD.
Yeah, right.
There was an element to it that felt good of like, yeah, I struggled a little against Ornstein and Smo, and now I get to use his weapon against him, or against everything else. There was a big element to that. Like, my first playthrough of Dark Souls 1 was like cosplay Ornstein. Once I figured that it was an option, it's pretty much what I did.
Yeah, makes sense. Got a couple other mentions. I love being able to persuade people in RPGs, but specifically the Force Persuades in KOTOR. That's one of my favorite dialogue-related abilities in any game. Just being in KOTOR 2 on Nar Shaddaa, and there's like a guy who comes up to you asking for something, and there's like this huge pit in the middle of the area with like quite the fall, and you can convince him that what he wants is in there, and he jumps down there and dies.
So you can play patches.
Pretty much.
You can play the agnostic role of patches.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is pretty fair, but the Fat Man from Fallout?
I never
I
used
remember
it.
that.
No, not even. Well, you must have played Fallout 3, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so you must have
giant,
used it on the Behemoth when you got it.
maybe.
Well, yeah, you had to have used it during one of the quests, but after that, you can do what you want with it.
Mm-hmm.
When you first get
Behemoth?
it, you're required to shoot it at the thing you're fighting, as like, here's your tutorial on how to nuke things, and
Basically.
Yeah,
Big
I mean,
super
if it was mandatory, then I did, but otherwise, like, I didn't. I usually don't fall for these, like, other than maybe Doom's BFG, like these like big, like, okay, the big red button kind of thing. Like, I'm fucked and I need to get out of there. I usually prefer to like bash my head against the wall and figure out another solution, rather than. I think it's scummy to have these weapons and use them, and I know the game gives them to you for you to use, but there's something about them that I don't like having to use them.
yeah. Well, that's another positive to Doom. It's like you don't feel like it's overpowered, because when I use it, it's like this was the only option. And even then, it doesn't win the fight for you outright, unless you're like in a single room corridor and everything's in front of you. Yeah, I don't think I used the Fat Man much either, except for when I was just fucking around and nuking shit for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we got a lot of answers out of that question. So shall we move on to the next one? You still got a bit of time, Louis, or do you want to?
Yeah, you know, I've okay, yeah. Let's make it one last one. I
yeah,
lost.
mine.
I thought it was still like 3 for some reason.
Oh my god.
Well, last time I looked at time, it was like I feel like it's 5 o'clock. I look and it's 3:30, so I'm like, ah, shit, nice. I have plenty of time still.
Yeah, but that was 2 hours ago.
But that was 2 hours
All
ago,
right.
apparently.
This is actually good time because my order is probably going to be here in like 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, here we'll end off on this question then. What is your favorite level / map / area in any game? Oh yeah, I knew
God.
that one was gonna hit you hard, Julian. I know you have some thoughts on that one for sure.
Okay, I know. I'll give. I'm not. I know if I think about it too much, it's gonna fuck me up. I'm just gonna throw out my 2 favorite maps and just call it. It's Medical Pavilion, BioShock 1, Root Canal, Half-Life 2. Both I fucking love everything about those two. I've replayed them countless times. Just perfection in terms of the flow in Root Canal. It's like you're just on a rampage. I know where all the red barrels are. You just shoot them, blow them up, keep moving, shoot more red barrels, blow them up. Super satisfying. BioShock's Medical Pavilion, it has the hub and spoke level design method used to split up the areas. You have all these cool different little shops for you to explore, and there's so much to find in terms of lore and in terms of just like weapon upgrades and plasmids, which are very, very new and exciting at that point in the game. So yeah, I could talk about Medical Pavilion for the rest of my life, but there you have it.
Good answers. Good answers. I'll piggyback off the Half-Life a bit and throw the Follow Freeman chapter in there. When you're fighting the Striders in the ruins of the city towards the end. It's like just the design, but also like just the set pieces in that mission with the Striders and the missile launchers, and it's great. And well, at least in regards to a set piece, the last battle in episode 2, with all the Striders and the Hunters coming at you, and it's tough. There's so many. So freaking many. Velen in Witcher 3. It's like pretty much flawless. It's the ideal Witcher playground, with the best stories, at least in the base game, and just the way everything's kind of connected and feeds off each other. And also there's a village and its surrounding areas in Pillars of Eternity called Deerford, and the music that plays there and the companions you meet there, and just the little self-contained story in there, it's awesome. Also, the entirety of Doom Eternal.
Every area that exists.
Every
Also,
level is a
that
masterpiece.
I have the soundtrack in my head now. Just hearing. I'm not even sure if it's a soundtrack. I hear just dun 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 dun. Like it's just playing in my head on loop. Like that's probably Doom.
Oh. Also, a shout out to a level in Half-Life 1, Surface Tension. When you finally get to the surface in Half-Life 1 and it's just chaos. I love it.
Is that where the soldiers and is it when you first go outside in the desert area and there's like all the soldiers shooting at you? Is that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of Half-Life 1, but
yeah, because it takes a while before you actually see sunlight in that game. But then once you get to that first full level that's outside, it's just like opens up. There's jets flying by. There's fucking bombs dropping on you. It's great. It's a good time.
It's a tough choice, because I can't just give it to all of Bloodborne's DLC.
Fair.
well,
But-
Jacob gave it all of Doom, so.
Yeah,
I-
most
yeah,
of the
but-
jokes,
Okay.
But-
I can narrow it down. I'm gonna start by 2 honorable mentions first. And I'll give one honorable mention to the research hall from the Bloodborne DLC. And I'll give an honorable mention to the Ash Lake in Dark Souls 1.
Yep. I was gonna
Oh,
say
yeah.
that too. It came to my
Finding that area,
mind. Oh my god.
and then the choir starting, like these big tenor voices and baritone voices that are just singing these voice harmonies when you're at what you can only assume to be like the root of the world
Yeah.
is fantastic.
And then right once you get comfortable, a fucking Hydra jumps over you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But if I have to pick a favorite, it's going to be Fishing Hamlet from the DLC, the Bloodborne DLC. Because out of all the areas, like the main game stays into this like gothic Renaissance aesthetic that I like, but it plays it safe in terms of its level design and its aesthetic design. But when you get to Research Hall and then further to the Fishing Hamlet, you really get to feel that like the weight of that cosmic horror that's weighing upon you, because the world stops making sense at this point because you're at the top of a building, but all of a sudden you're like on a lakeside. So it's just like, where am I in comparison to the world? And like, there's like a body that's falling at some point that you end up finding out was falling from that other world. And anyways, it just plays well into this whole like cosmic element of Bloodborne that I love a lot. And it's got an aesthetic that's unlike anything else in that game. So it really drew me in on that one. I gotta give it to the Fishing Hamlet.
Yeah.
I think only Dan remains.
Yeah. Favorite places.
Which one of the Zelda temples was your favorite?
I mean, that's basically it, right?
I know what you're thinking, don't worry.
I mean, there are so many good fucking well-designed levels and areas. I mean, I love the Kiln of the First Flame, obviously. Like, there's a lot of Dark Souls atmosphere-wise in terms of design. And Orlando is amazing. Magic Ant from Earthbound. I mean, for Zelda, I guess the Stone Tower Temple?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it really, like, even the music and everything else, like, you just feel like you're at the last of the main temples, you know? Like, just everything the whole way through. It's even the fucking shitty climb to get to the top of the tower to actually start the dungeon is crazy. And then there's the dungeon itself, which you play through like about half of, and then you got to come back outside with the light arrows that you pick up, flip the whole temple upside down, and like explore it a totally different way. To me, that's really neat. And games that do that, like obviously Symphony of the Night, when Dracula's castle flips upside down.
Oh yeah.
Like just being able to, I guess, yeah, kind of. I guess in that case, Symphony of the Night, all of Dracula's castle, because it's the whole game and it's done.
Yeah, I was just about
so
to ask.
well.
Don't you spend the entire game in there?
Yeah.
That's fucking good.
I'm disappointed, Dad. I thought you'd say it was Ocarina of Time's Water Temple that was your favorite.
Oh, of course, of course. I
Goes
mean,
without saying.
my therapist's favorite, because it's like, oh, this fucking asshole's gonna pay me so much money. But yeah. Fucking crazy.
All right.
I guess otherwise, maybe last one really quick. Just that first village you get into in Resident Evil 4.
Oh yeah.
I think they did that so well. Like, it just really set the tone for the entire game going forward. Also scared the shit out of me. I've never looked at chainsaws the same way again.
A lot of tension in that level. Everything sort of goes from like 0 to 100. Like your drivers are impaled there, they're on fire, and it seems like a normal. It's like, oh, it's just a village. Hunnigan, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, oh, well, why don't you go investigate the president's daughter might be there? And then you walk in, and you're like, oh, I've played Resident Evil. There's zombies, and then they're just like super intelligent planning how to like corner you in, and you're like, there's a lot of guys here. Yeah. There's certainly a lot of guys here. Maybe this is a supposed to lose battle, and then you die, and you're like, oh my god, I have to actually not die here. You're like barricading yourself in the houses. You find the shotgun, but you're like, oh, that'll do it, and you're like, okay, never mind, that won't do it. You're just like jumping out of windows and running it. Like, it's so intense, that part. Holy shit!
And then from that first fucking chainsaw pull, just that, you're like, oh god, what? I thought I was supposed to get the chainsaw. Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
Leon's like, he's like, oh shit, and you're like, oh, okay, we're dead. Like,
Yeah, that's it.
when that ends, and when you beat it, that's when the title comes up. So you know, like that's basically like the tone. That is the tone they wanted to deliver. They're like, you beat it, you're like, oh, okay, that's it, and it's like Resident Evil 4. And you're like, okay,
Yeah,
here
exactly. Welcome to the show. Oh my god.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps up our 11th episode of Just Your Average Gaming Podcast. Thanks for watching, everybody who's not watching right now, but will watch in the future on YouTube, hopefully.
Of course. Please. We're so lonely.
And yeah, hit that like, subscribe, follow, whatever button is relevant to whatever platform you're watching on. And keep an eye out for new content coming up. Maybe some Minecraft gameplay. And definitely some other kinds of gameplay. So yeah, with that, it's just a bunch of average gamers signing off, and stay average, everybody.
Stay average. What a note.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
Not enough people push forth the benefit of being just your average person.
Mm-hmm.
We shall appeal to that average audience.
Yes.
To all those of you that feel disabused about being just your average guy, don't worry, we're here for
We're
you.
here for you. You don't have to see all these streamers who are either like super attractive or super good at these games. You can be ugly and average and have a voice, okay?
All right, well, good talk, guys. Good talk.
Yeah.
Fun. I guess we have a subject for the next one, because atmosphere in gaming is definitely something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.